Hey everybody, welcome in. Welcome to Crystal Masters for October. We're so happy that you're here. I'm reading your comments, but I shouldn't get caught up in the comments just yet. Welcome into what I think is going to be a powerhouse session for you. I really, really do. This is a class that is going to combine some elements of teaching from previous years, things that we haven't talked about or circled back to in a really long time, and then some brand new wisdom that we haven't talked about or shared before. So we're really happy to see you. A little tidbit of some fun information. This week, I think most of you know that right after my mom died, I was blessed because Penguin Random House, which is the biggest publisher in the world, reached out to me to see if I wanted to write a book. And so my fourth book was just sent to Penguin Random House yesterday. And I can't tell you too much about it except it will be, when it's published in June, the most comprehensive book on gems and minerals ever written. And I'm really excited about it. So I hope you're excited. I hope you're proud. When it's published, it'll be published worldwide and translated into many languages. And so I just want to say congratulations also to Team SG, who supported me in this entire project. But what it means is that your certificates coming out of Sage Goddess, especially after June of next year, when the most comprehensive crystal book in the world ever in history is published by me and my team in Sage Goddess, it means that the value of your certificates and your education will be even more significant. So I can't tell you more than that. It'll be available for pre-sale coming up soon in every global distributor in the next probably 60 days, which is really exciting. It's been a year in the making and the writing. It'll be published in June of 2023, and then I'll be doing book tours and signings and all kinds of things in different parts of the world to celebrate the release of this book. So I'm honored. I think as my publisher said, when Judy Hall passed away, left a real gap in the gem and mineral world, and she came to me to see if I could fill that void. And so this is a very, very significant, powerful, exciting development for me and for Sage Goddess. And it's nice to know that all of my wisdom will be captured somewhere for all of time. We will not have our book on our own website probably for the first 6 months. When books are published globally like this, the distributor tends to have all of the copies. Eventually I will have them, and hopefully we'll be able to do a book signing or a book tour or visit to a city near you, even if you're not in the US. I'm hoping to travel globally to support the book. So get excited, and like I said, no, this book is very different. It's not like Judy Hall's books, because I'm not that person who does things the way other people do them. Judy had her own legacy. So my book is very much me and Sage Goddess. But it is, for sure, it has more gems and minerals in it than any gem and mineral book ever published in the history of our world. So cheers, and thank you for the congratulations. It was a beautiful thing to have Penguin come to me, especially right after Mom died. It was always my dream to be published by the biggest publisher in the world, and it's not something you can pursue. They kind of have to come to you, and so it was a proud moment for me, and it's been an incredible journey to bring this to you. So cheers, and big kudos. I stand on big shoulders of Judy and of Melody and all of those who have come before me in the gem and mineral world, and then one day there'll be someone after me who will write an even bigger book, I'm sure, in the generations to come. But I'm looking forward to coming and visiting you where you live, and would really appreciate your support once it's available for pre-order on Amazon and Barnes & Noble, and all the major global outlets would love your support. So stay tuned for all of that exciting news. So welcome to Crystal Masters for the month of October. And what's exciting, I don't know that my kids are ever going to write books. My kids are not writers. That's not their passion, but they are excited about it. So, and hopefully they'll be able to travel with me and come and visit you guys and say hello for you in the future as well. So, cheers. Are you ready to talk about tonight's a big class? I always tell you that. You know, I have stacks and stacks and stacks of things to show you, and pages and pages and pages of notes to share with you. And I have 90 minutes to kind of drain my brain. I even have my computer open with a map. So there's just a lot of information for tonight. But I want to tell you that my hope is tonight is both practical and theoretical. Alexis has Charlotta, who's my chakra model, and we're going to set her up because we didn't want to necessarily have the full massage table in front of you. There she is. I like to think of her as a willing participant, but I don't know how willing she is. She doesn't have a lot of choices. But this is Charlotta, who is... she didn't come that way. She came kind of nude, and then my friend Sherry painted her. My friend Sherry came over and was like, she doesn't have a face, and she doesn't have chakras. So she took her home, and can you believe my friend Sherry, in 24 hours, transformed her from nude to mood. Pretty talented lady. So anyway.
I'm just disappointed that you didn't bring her wig.
Oh, I thought you were going to say you're disappointed she doesn't have a cooter, but you know what I mean. She's not identifying.
I was just disappointed about the wig.
Yeah, you didn't even mention that. That was my own brain.
Yeah, she's not identifying.
Well, people always want to see what's downtown, and I'm like, her root chakra's downtown. I don't have anything else to show you. She's got all of her chakra bits and pieces. She had a wig once. Do you guys remember that? It was like Samhain, I think, last year, wasn't it? I put a red wig on her and I dressed her up.
Yeah, you put a wig on her.
She always looks kind of suspicious. She's like me with her left eyebrow always raised. Like, what you talking about, right? Yeah, she doesn't have anything downtown other than her chakras, but that's fine because she doesn't need that. She's just here to teach us how to move energy.
She likes your pumpkin.
She does like
it's a
my
very
pumpkin.
cute pumpkin.
Isn't that cute?
Say, it's very Alice in Wonderland. If that took place in Halloween, I like it.
Mackenzie Childs. They did a line this year called Fortune Teller Pumpkins, so I had to get one, and I was like, that has to be in the office. And I may never remove it.
I don't think you should. I think you should just keep it up forever. I really do.
There's something about the stem of it that excites me. She looked crazy. Maybe she is crazy. All the best people are crazy. Charlie Colley's like, love her. I'm a Charlotte. I'm a willing participant. So she's here for it. She doesn't even know what's going to happen to her tonight, and yet she's down. So let's dive right in. So the first 90 minutes is going to be, if you're new, anybody new to Crystal Masters tonight, by the way, we're super happy you're here. The tool for tonight is still available at sagegoddess.com, and your code is MAGIC. So my team is posting the link for you. I'm excited to tell you that we also have tumbled versions of this stone, Cosmic Stone, and spheres for you. So if you missed the wand for any reason and you want a smaller version, or you got the wand and you're like, I still want a piece for my crystal healing tray, which is how I feel, you can choose a little mini sphere or a tumbled piece too, and these are also at sagegoddess.com and 23% off with code MAGIC. So you don't need to go offline right now and go get it, but you know, tonight if you're like, well, that was really interesting and I want to work with that stone, I want to see what it's all about. So Jess is new. Magic with a K or magic with a C, I don't know, it's up to you. Who else is new? I love it. Jessica's like, I'm willing to be new. You're very experienced, darling. Yeah, double term points are what I'm teaching tonight, as well as extractor needles. So those are the two tools if you have an extractor needle or a double term quartz point. If you don't have tonight's tool from your kit, those are the two alternate tools. So if you would like to work with the exact tools I'm working with tonight, those are the two you're going to need. Yeah, and welcome to everybody who's new. I love it. Jenny's like, new to Soul Shift last week. So exciting. So yeah, so anyway, that's the tools for tonight. That's kind of the order of operations. So for the next 90 minutes, 40, well, maybe like 65 minutes, 70 minutes, I'm going to be only looking at the camera. So if you're asking questions in the feed and I don't answer your question, Oh, Elsie meant the code. It's just magic with a C. MAGIC. I totally screwed up and was not understanding your code. I'm like, well, however you want to spell it, but not for the code. Is it Friday yet?
There is a specific spelling for the code.
Yes, there's a specific spelling.
And it is not Friday yet. I 100% woke up this morning thinking it was Friday.
It feels Friday-ish.
And I went down the line in my head because I was like, well, it's not Friday, but at least it's Thursday. And then I had to realize that it wasn't even Thursday.
It's not even Thursday. And I was up at the crack this morning because my son had his PSAT exam today and stuff, so there's like other things going on. Crazy town. Anyway, magic with a C, whatever. Don't count on the menopausal folks to be able to help you here. We're doing the best we can, right? I know. Okay, so anyway, for the next hour-ish, if I don't answer your questions in the feed, I'm not ignoring you. I really try to focus on the camera and give you what I call the meat on the bone, which is just the focus on the content. Because the second half of class is all Q&A, every time. And that's the best time to ask your questions. So if you ask a question now, I'm probably going to miss it. I would really recommend that you wait until I tell you, hey, this is Q&A time. There is no test for certification, Lynn Smith, and I'll tell you why. You don't need it. My PhD is in adult education. And do you know that studies have proven over decades that adults don't learn better when they're tested? Because what they do is they cram for a test, but they don't remember the wisdom. So the reason I don't test for certification is that my training tells me I don't need to. If you come for your classes and you attend your classes and you finish your classes, you get the certificate through Sage Goddess. So cheers. Cheers to not having tests. It just doesn't work. Adults don't learn that way. And so, yeah, and I love it. I love that you guys had young ones taking PSAT today too. Okay, so much to cover. Are you ready? Let's dive right in. I want to start by saying that tonight's teaching is really fundamentally comes down to one concept, okay? So, and we're going to talk about different tools, and we'll talk all about I wouldn't recommend using your Mudra diamond as an extractor because it's double terminated, Teresa. So, but you can use that as a double terminated wand. So I wouldn't confuse the two. Extractor diamonds are very specifically rounded on one end and terminated on the other. So with that, I turn back to the feed. I keep saying I'm not going to address questions, and I'm totally addressing questions. But I want to make sure you guys are set up for success and you have what you need. So here's what I want to tell you, okay? Everything in tonight's class comes down to one basic concept, and the basic concept is, how do we move energy? Okay? And I've been a spiritual practitioner since I was 15, 16, 17 years old, so over 30 years. And I've been a spiritual teacher for over a decade online. And I was teaching spiritual classes and programs before Sage Goddess in person. So I've been doing the work that I teach you for the better part of my entire life, right? And what I'm going to tell you is this: whether you talk to, and I just did this morning, I talked to my shaman this morning and caught up with her for the first time in a long time. Whether you talk to a shaman here in the United States or in Central or South America or other parts of the world, or whether you talk to a Reiki master, or whether you talk to even an energy worker or a clinical psychologist, everybody will tell you that when energy stops moving, when it's stuck, when it's stagnant, when think of it this way, when your digestion stops happening, right? Not to be too graphic, but like when you're constipated, right? Your body is not getting what it needs, the nutrients from your food. We need our entire digestive system from the time we take a bite of our food all the way through the digestive process and elimination. We need that process to keep moving because it creates what we call divine flow of energy, okay? In shamanism, which is the subject of Soul Shift this month, which is why I'm mentioning it. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't mention shamanism so specifically, but I am teaching shamanism in Soul Shift this month. Every single shaman I've ever worked with or met, and that's dozens of people over 5 or 6 different continents, have all said the same thing. Healing comes down to whether energy is moving or it's stuck. If you look at Chinese medicine and acupuncture, what is the goal of acupuncture? The goal of acupuncture is to put those needles in those appropriate places and those acupoints in order to redirect the flow of what we call qi or qi, also known as prana, which is the life force energy. You and I are very similar in so many ways. It doesn't matter whether you look like me or live where I live or even speak the same language I do. None of those things matter. Our core similarity is that we have an energetic system which is divided into two hemispheres, the masculine and the feminine, the sending and the receiving, right? And there is a flow of energy through those two hemispheres of our body. We have two hemispheres of our brain as well, the subjective and the objective, which also align to feminine and masculine. And we can tell when energy is flowing. We feel happy, we feel lighthearted, we feel peaceful, we feel like things are maybe not perfect, but there's like an order to things, right? Things are in motion. When energy is not moving, we feel sad, depressed, we can feel angry and frustrated, and we tend to have physical symptoms like pain, illness, and disease, okay? Any pain in the physical body, and I say this to you also because I have a lot of friends who are allopathic doctors, Western doctors, MDs, who agree with me on this concept that ultimately pain comes down to the flow of energy in the body, right? Think about what happens if you stop moving, if you stop walking, right? When people are in the hospital for extended stays, what happens to their muscles, right? They move into a state of physical apathy. The muscles start to degenerate. And then they sometimes will even need physical therapy. Even if they've only been in the hospital for a week, they can sometimes need physical therapy to start moving and walking again, right? So, all to say that the flow of energy in your body, from my perspective as an energy worker and healer, is the number one priority. I have had multiple experiences in my life, one of them just a couple of years ago, and I've shared this with you, with our community, where I had pain in my shoulder, my rotator cuff, or atrophy, I should say, yeah. Where it got to the point where I couldn't move my arm beyond just like, I could lift it to about here, but I could not fully extend my arm. And I couldn't raise it all the way up, especially on the right side, but even on the left side, like I did not have this span of movement, okay? So I went to an orthopedic surgeon. And the doctor said, let me put you on really strong painkillers, and then if that doesn't work, then we'll start to look at surgery as an option. That was the answer. And then I went to a second specialist, and again, it was like, let's put you on these bucco painkillers, and then if that doesn't work, we'll look at surgery as an option. I wasn't willing to take the painkillers, and I wasn't willing to have surgery. So I was not a good patient for either of those specialists. And so what I did is I set out on a process of figuring out what my energetic options were. And I will tell you that other than Aleve for my shoulder, all I did was Vogel work, but I did it every single day for 6, 8, 12 months. I used essential oils, I had massage, and I did extraction work to remove unwanted energy and to help fuel the flow and direct the flow. I was using my extractor needle in the places where I had pain to try and, almost recreate an acupuncture environment to help redirect the flow of energy. I have full mobility and no pain. I haven't taken any painkillers for my shoulder in, years. I think it's been about a year and a half, 2 years now that I haven't had any pain. I used to be able to not sleep on my right side. So I count myself as a success case. And I'm not saying in every single case, if you have intense pain, that you can avoid surgery and painkillers. But I really wanted to find a way to have a solution that didn't require that level of intervention. My mom had orthopedic surgery and had sustained nerve damage because of it, and was never healthy again after that. She couldn't smile on one side because of neck surgery. So I really wanted to avoid that, and I really took those pains to do that. So yeah, it's very important that I always say, follow the best of East and West, but if your doctor is saying the only option is surgery, sometimes it's good to work with your crystals and just see what's possible, because I've seen absolute miracles happen. I really, really have. And I also think your mindset is important. I think a lot of people, when they have chronic pain and injuries, will say, well, that's just how it is. Or like I said, everybody in my family has arthritis, or that's just, because that's what I thought it was. I'm like, maybe my mom had arthritis, my grandma, my great grandma, my mom and grandma both had back surgery. Like maybe that was just my kind of lot in life. But I do think it's important to try all of your options. And tonight I'm going to give you some real techniques that worked for me. And I want to see if they work for you as well, or people you love, right? Okay. So without further ado, let's talk about this. Now, here's what's interesting about Brazil. One of my first introductions to healing in Brazil was through a very famous healer, John of God. How many of you have heard of John of God? And I'm not a proponent of John of God. I'm someone who has researched him, but I'm not, he's had some challenges with claims, and some of them weren't even about his healing techniques. Some of them were about his appreciation for ladies. So I'm not here kind of like on the John of God wagon. I do have a healing grid from inside his sanctuary that I do consider a very powerful tool. So I started doing research into John of God. I was just curious, you know what I mean? Because you hear all these stories, like Oprah had followed John of God. There was a documentary that went down and kind of traced his work and tracked his work. And I thought, this is interesting. And he did get in trouble. I always encourage people, it's like people will put spiritual leaders on a big pedestal, like they're perfect, and then find out, that they're not perfect, and then discredit all the work they've done in their whole lives. I don't know exactly what he's done, but I always encourage you to look with a broad perspective at people's lives. Because I just don't know the truth about the events that unfolded around him. But his story is very interesting. Let's put all the other stuff aside, because here's what's fascinating about it. In my research over the last 20 years, right, on this subject of psychic surgery in Brazil, because I'm fascinated by the topic, and hopefully you are too, because it's so much what we're talking about tonight. He's one of hundreds. Is Charlotta preventing you from paying attention? I could have Alexis move her. I don't know. Don't let her distract you. She's up there, but she's not trying to distract you.
I'll put her on timeout.
Yeah. He's one of hundreds of psychic surgeons in Brazil. He's just the one who got the TV attention and kind of the celebrity attention, but he comes from a lineage of this. Did you know? And I want to explain to you what the lineage is. Okay? So the idea of psychic surgery in Brazil is very specific to Brazil. What the healers who do psychic surgery in Brazil tend to do, and it is shocking to people. I've read multiple books about it. There's a book called, I want to say it's called, I can't remember the exact title, Surgeon with a Scalpel. I think it's called Spirit with a Scalpel. Don't quote me on it. We can find the title for you later. I think it's called Spirit with a Scalpel. Anyway, it documents a lot of these cases if you're fascinated by any of this stuff. And what's interesting is, so he would, and people were shocked to see it, he would take a scalpel, and so the same with all of these other healers too, and without any anesthesia and without any cleaning of the tools, would go in and scrape inside the eye cavity, scrape inside the ears, open up skin and go in and move the internal organs around with their hands, which in the US in clinical environments you would just be like, oh my God, that's so scary, right? And here's the fascinating part of it. The thousands and thousands and thousands of patients who've been through these treatments all say the same thing, which is they didn't feel anything. They had no anesthesia and spirits with scalpels. And the other interesting thing is, even without any of those tools being cleaned between the patients, no one ever got bacterial infections. Like here in the US, we would say that's not sanitary, that's not... So, and a lot of people say they would never do it until they have a very serious illness or disease, and every mainline treatment fails them. So a lot of the people who've gone down and had these treatments have been told, their cancer is too far along, or they can't remove the tumor, or something where they're not eligible for Western treatment, and they go down and have these alternative treatments, and then they survive and go on to have a full life expectancy. And the documentation of these cases is, like I said, not in the dozens, it's not even in the hundreds, it's in the thousands of people, and they come and they flock from all over the world on these pilgrimages. Now again, I'm not suggesting these things for you, but it's kind of fun to bring this to your awareness. Because for me, psychic surgery, I'm not going to take this and put it in my eyeball tonight. I'm not going to put it in her eyeball. I'm not going to put it in Charlotta's eyeball.
You do not have my consent.
No, I don't have her consent. I don't even have my own consent. Nobody's doing that tonight. But I thought it was interesting, okay, to bring this up to you, because the way I was taught about psychic surgery is not to open skin and move organs around and do weird shit like that. But I was taught in a shamanic context about 15 years ago about psychic surgery. And I've been teaching about gemstones and psychic surgery since Sage Goddess started 11 years ago. So, I always say I have a very open mind. I don't know that I could physically go down and do something like that. I think it would be too much for me personally, but I don't judge people who go to those extremes or take their loved ones. If I thought it would save a loved one's life, I might have a different perspective, right? So yeah, sorry to disappoint you if you're hoping for eyeball surgery. That's not what's happening tonight. But I do want to talk about psychic surgery in a shamanic context tonight. I'm going to give you kind of an overview before we start of how I think about energy and pain and what I think our energetic options are, okay? Because I like to do what I call an if-then analysis. And, I'm trained as a scientist in the scientific method. So when I tell you things like this, the if-then analysis for me is always based in science. If A is true, and B follows A, then B also has to be true, right? Like these are kind of like equations that I run through in my mind. So if A is true, that energy is real. And if B follows A, that energy can become stuck at certain points. Then it also follows that stuck energy prevents the flow of energy, which leads to health and can cause the opposite of that, which is illness, right? It stands to me to reason that blocked energy would bring symptoms that would be associated with the opposite of health and well-being, which would be, if you're happy, the opposite is you can be sad. If you don't have pain, if you're comfortable in your body, the opposite would be you would have discomfort, right? So the flow of energy leads to A, which is all the things we want, happiness and joy and abundance and peace and comfort. The blockage of energy leads to B, which is the opposite of all of those things. What I have seen in the realm of multi and interdimensional healing is this. And I don't want to make this too complicated because I know it can get really complicated and some of you are newer in your journey. Some of you are seasoned veterans, but some of you are newer in your journey. So let me try and say this as simply as I can. I believe that there's not really past lives that happened to you like 3,000 years ago or 20,000 years ago, or that there's future lifetimes that are going to happen 3,000 years from now or 20,000 years from now. I do believe that we've had past lives and we will have future lives, but I believe they're all happening right now. And that's hard to imagine because we live in the third dimension, and in the third dimension we have something called time, which includes a past and a future and a present. They're all different. So the past, we can put a number on it and say that was 20 years ago. In the future, we can put a number on it and say that's 30 years from now. But I think that's all constructed because we don't understand the fourth dimension where there is no time. Okay, so the fourth dimension says it is not 3:36 p.m. Pacific time. There is no such thing. So that's why spirit time is kind of complicated. When I say, oh, it might happen in spirit time, and you're like, what is spirit time? And I say, I don't know. It's because I really don't know. It's all happening now. What this means on a cosmic healing level is that all the forms of you that do not have your current health challenges, your younger self, your future self, you in past lifetimes, that don't have the same physical healing challenges that you have right now, also exist right now. And my belief is that we can either jump a timeline backward or jump a timeline forward right now, and we can move aspects of because our DNA is a living double strand of life force energy, right? Your DNA is mutable. What you eat can damage your DNA, right? It can unlock codes for cancer and other things, right? Your DNA is in progress. So I believe that we can pull from our future self that's healthy or a past self that's healthy into our present self, which isn't really past and future, but I am human and I have to use human language. And we can pull all of that energy into this moment and into our bodies to recode the DNA for healing and for comfort and pain relief and relief from depression and anxiety. Does that make sense? We can, well, it's a little bit more than calling upon them. I'm going to teach you some crystal healing techniques tonight to actually draw that energy in, which is why my primary tool for tonight is a double terminated quartz point. Now, this is not your mama's double term quartz point, right? I don't know if we have like a regular double term. We don't really need one, but you've seen a regular double term quartz point before, right? That's just clear and they're beautiful, but it's not. Oh, here's one. This is what we would call kind of a traditional double term quartz point, right? It's clear quartz. This is titanium aura, but there's no other inclusions in this one. And this is fused, right? So the artist took this one, glued the two pieces together, wrapped it in copper. And this is a very effective double term point. It's very effective. There is something special about a double term point that is continuous, meaning there's no division, there's no gluing, right? It's all the organic material and it's just in one piece. So for this, Jessica Hicks, for part of our class tonight, you can use your needles. For part of it, you can't. And so that's why at the beginning I was recommending if you have a double terminated quartz point, even if it's super tiny, it does not have to be big. But for the first part of our class, you will need a double term point, which is why this is this month's class tool. But we will be talking about extraction needles, okay? So what a double term quartz point allows you to do that no other shape and mineral in the healing process can replicate is it allows you to send and receive energy in both directions. Now that means between me and you, that means between the world of spirit and the world of matter, right? And that also means between who I am today, like right now here in this body, like this form that you see me in now, and also all of my past lives where I didn't have MS maybe, and all of my future lifetimes where I have also a different form and a different, I might not be female, I might be male, and I can call those energies in, right? So past lifetimes where, and we can, and this isn't just about pain and disease, this is also about empowerment. Sometimes I have clients who are too much in their feminine energy and they need more masculine energy, and so I will have them work with a double term point to connect back to a lifetime where they identified as male. And they can channel their own divine masculine energy. You've been everything everywhere, right? I've had lifetimes as animals, right? So I can go in and channel some of that big cat energy, right? And bring that in when I need to be more ferocious or more empowered, right? So all of those things. So size does not matter, but material does matter. You do need a quartz-based double term. And I'm going to explain to you why. Quartz, silicon dioxide, is the highest vibration mineral on the planet. It's true. It grows with different mineral inclusions. This particular form of silicon dioxide comes from Brazil, and I'll show you the exact region. Actually, I don't know if we have the exact region for this for Cosmic Stone, but we should probably grab that. I think it came from the Rio Grande do Sul, but we can double check that too.
Yes.
Rosalind will know, yeah. So quartz has a couple of qualities about it that no other gem and mineral on the planet has. That's why you'll hear me sometimes. I don't know if you ever come to my lives that I do each day. I do a lot of teaching there, and in your Facebook group and in videos that I do, you will constantly hear me talking about the one thing you have to have in your collection is a quartz point. And ideally you should have a single term and a double term. And then if you like want to go crazy, you can have other things like an extractor needle and a Vogel and some of these other shapes, which are kind of like, those are specialty tools. But at the very minimum, you must have at least one double terminated point in your collection. The size does not matter, but the material does matter. No other mineral in the gem and mineral world is as magnifying, has the same vibration and frequency, and no other mineral in the world is as easily programmable, meaning quartz can be programmed to operate as if it's any other mineral in your collection. So let's say you're traveling and you wish you had black tourmaline with you, and you don't, but you have quartz. That's happened to me. Has that happened to anybody else? Yeah, just a reminder, if you have questions, please hold them until the end of class. Try to just be here with me now and focus, but write your questions down. The whole second half of class is just Q&A, and I promise I'll get to as many questions as I can, so just hold your questions for now. So that's happened to me where I'm like, oh, I really wish I had black tourmaline right now, but I don't, but I've had clear quartz. And so what I've done is I've programmed my clear quartz to act as if it's black tourmaline, so it works for protection. The key is you want to remember to deprogram your clear quartz once you're done. Otherwise, it maintains that vibration and it kind of continues to operate as black tourmaline and doesn't operate as if it's clear quartz. So you want to program your quartz and then you can deprogram it, and we can talk about that too. I think we did do, I think we covered programming of quartz, I want to say back in January?
December of 2021.
Oh, December of last year. So if we don't get to it tonight for any reason, but you were in the program last year, you can always go back to December's class. And if you weren't in the program, the fun thing about Crystal Masters is you can go back and just pick up a class or two from previous years without the whole year if you want to, just to get specific information. Because sometimes we just can't pack everything into one class, and so it's kind of spread apart. Okay, now, when we work with, and many people refer to double term quartz as a transmitter point, meaning that it transmits energy from point A to point B. A extractor, let me just, any of them is good. An extractor needle is not a transmitter. An extractor needle is what we call a single terminated point, okay? Instead of having two terminations, it has one and a rounded edge. Now your natural points, like your clear quartz points that are just natural, often are single terminated as well. They have a kind of a broken or a rough edge on one side, but a natural point or termination on the other. And then the other thing to say about double term points is this. Double term points can be carved, this one is carved, or they can be natural. Natural double terminated points are very rare, and I'll explain to you why. They grow on a cluster. Okay, so let's imagine this is a point on a quartz cluster. This is a Lemurian wand, by the way. So let's imagine this is one point on a big cluster. The way double terms grow is they grow perpendicular. So they actually attach to the points of other points, but at the angle. Is that cool? And so that's why they're so rare. It's anomalous. They grow horizontal to the cluster. And so what people do when they're mining double term points, natural double terms, is they cut it right at what that's called the connection point, right? So they cut it there. And so a natural double term will always have an indentation underneath, which is the extraction point or the connection point where it was originally connected to the mother cluster. So that's one way to know if you have a natural double term. This particular formation of quartz had to be carved into double terms. In my experience, they're no less powerful, they're just different. You will pay a premium for quartz that is naturally double terminated. We had a whole listing, I think, I don't remember when it was, and I don't think we have it anymore, of naturally double terminated Lemurian points. We may still have some, but I don't think they're on the website. It's actually good to ask Rosalind about that, actually, because I think we found a few more of those in Denver. So a Vogel is considered a double terminated, so we'll talk a little bit about Vogels tonight. Those are double terminated as well. Vogels, though, remember, are, again, always carved. And you're never going to hear me say I think it's better or worse, because I think any double terminated quartz functions equally well. I've done really powerful healing work with natural double terms and with carved double terms, and I've never had a moment where I thought, the natural's better.
We have we have naturally double terminated quartz wands in the shop.
Ooh.
They're not listed as Lemurian, but they are naturally double terminated. The link to all of our double terminated quartz wands is in our classroom.
Okay, good.
But
yeah, it's in the classroom.
I'll drop this official link too.
Yeah, she'll put that in the feed too, so that you have that. Again, don't go get one right now, but if you want one for later, it is kind of cool. Sometimes, especially if you're a collector, it's nice to have some polished double terms and some natural double terms, and to do your own experiments with them, because you might have a different experience than me. But like I said, in my experience, I love them both. And some of my favorite tools are polished and carved and not natural, so I wouldn't necessarily, turn up my nose to one form or the other. Okay. Now, I'm just going through my notes. So tonight's about how do we move energy, how do we run energy, how do we hold energy, how do we shift energy, how do we transform energy, and how do we generate or create energy. And all of those things can be done with a double term point. So that's why I'm saying it's kind of like, if there's one tool that is going to be, in my opinion, really considered multi-purpose and critical for your collection, I would have to say it's the double term. Okay. The problem of crystal healing is that we can't see energy. So people will say, well, how do you know that it's moving, that it's happening? Okay, so one of the tools also for exercises like we're going to do tonight that's really, really helpful, and I always tell you to have a pendulum too, is that you can work with your pendulum. I always like to call it the before and after. So, and with my shoulder, for example, I would always run the pendulum over my shoulder before I would work with my tool, and then I would work with my tool and I would run the pendulum afterward. And it would give me kind of a barometer for, has the energy shifted? Is it as clear as it can be for now? And it gives you a nice yes-no answer. Because energy is invisible, the way pendulums work is they respond to energy in the field. So if you're like, well, how does it know to say yes or no? It's not, you're not controlling it. The flow of energy is controlling the direction of your pendulum. So that's another good, I always call it my gut check, because there is part of me that is skeptical. I've just had so many crystal healing experiences that I'm not a skeptic anymore, but I do always appreciate that there are people who come into classes and programs and into their practice with a little bit of a skeptical eye, because I think that's a good thing. I don't think we should just, believe what people tell us. I think having our own lived experiences is very potent. And so I want to encourage you to try on yourself, especially if you're having areas of discomfort. And I know very few people over the age of 30 who don't have some achy breakies, you know what I mean? There's all these memes on social media that say, welcome to your 30s, I hope you like ibuprofen. I hope you like Advil or whatever. So a lot of people, and it's terrible actually, because chronic use of non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, the NSAIDs, like, and I'm sure you know this, like Tylenol and Advil and even naproxen in the form of Aleve, chronic use of those is very disruptive to the lining of your digestive system and can cause other challenges that have nothing to do with your chronic pain. So my goal is to see people, like I said, use the best of East and West, go to your doctor, be a good patient, and then also see what you can do on the energetic level too. Yeah. Okay. Other questions that people sometimes will ask me is, does this work on referred pain? So sometimes it's your shoulder that's causing you the problem, but the pain is showing up in your head. That's called referred pain. And so in my experience, yes, crystal healing techniques can help you both with direct and what we call referred pain. Migraines, interestingly enough, are one of those shitty conditions that respond really well both to crystal healing and aromatherapy. We actually have a migraine blend, a new one coming to Sage Goddess soon that I formulated. Yeah, I'm really excited about it. Because I've been doing a lot of research too. I have so many clients and friends with migraines, and it just seems like it's getting, like, a lot of them have had COVID and it's made their migraines worse. So I was like, I'm going to reformulate something before the holidays to help everybody with their migraine pain. But I also really do recommend crystal healing. And one of the things to do for headaches, when we talk about moving energy tonight, is to use your double term wand.
Did you lose your wand? Was it Charlotte?
Oh, it's there. At the base of your skull, like right where your neck kind of, bends on both sides. And I'll teach you a technique that I do when I have a headache, which is I'll do it on Alexa's. I move from the right side of the bottom of my skull to the left side and back. And then I move from the base of my skull to the top of my head and back. And I make this sort of cross formation, and it really moves. Again, the goal is to move the energy. And you don't have to, when you're working on moving energy is different than extracting energy. Okay, moving energy just means you want to create a pathway for that energy not to be stuck in one location. So if it's hurting on the right side, let's move it to the left and up and down. Extracting energy means you want to remove the energy from the field and actually release it to an element, earth, air, fire, or water. My favorite is earth, but I'll teach you the other techniques tonight too. So that's the difference, okay? Moving energy just means as long as it's moving through your system, and a lot of healers I work with and a lot of shaman I work with say you don't have to extract it. Energy can naturally extend out of your field through your crown chakra and through your root chakra. Your crown chakra is the soft spot on the top of your head. Have you ever had babies before? I remember the month both of my kids' soft spot closed. Because it's really creepy when you have babies, but you can actually feel their heartbeat through this little soft spot because it's open. Their cranium hasn't closed. And slowly as they get older, the plates of the cranium close, and then you can't feel the heartbeat there. The same thing happens at the perineum, which is the space between your shooter or your cooter and your pooper. Okay, that's your perineum. And that's a soft spot too. And energy naturally drains through the perineum. So energy naturally exits the body through the crown chakra, which is that where your soft spot was, and also exits the body through the perineum. And you don't have to tell energy to do this. Your body is naturally doing this all the time. Your body is a self-sustaining powerhouse for healing. Very infrequently do we need to interfere and tell our body, hey, release energy. Your body is naturally expelling energy all the time. When you cry, when you shake, when you yawn, when you sweat, you are expelling energy. If you've ever had the experience of just like all of a sudden you're sweating and you don't know why, or all of a sudden you're shaking, you got a whole body quiver and you don't know why, or all of a sudden you're crying and you're not even sad, that's your body saying, I've got excess energy, I got to get it out, and this is how I'm going to do it. Natural elimination processes, right? Going to the bathroom is another way that your body naturally releases energy, and a lot of toxins in that process too, which is why it's important not to get constipated. We talk about, and burping too is another way that people release energy, and that will change over time. My shaman for a long time burped constantly, and then stopped. And I remember having the conversation of like, why do you think you stopped burping and started yawning, and then went from yawning to shaking, and then went from shaking to, and it was like, I don't know. It's just that particular person's way of releasing energy was shifting over time. So you might be, for a while, you might be somebody who burps a lot, and then all of a sudden you find yourself yawning all the time, and again, you're not tired, right? Like, I've had coffee, why am I yawning? It's because you've got energy that's stuck and it needs to be released. Yeah, so crying and all of those things are sort of sometimes autonomic functions to help your body expel unnecessary energy. So tonight I'm going to teach you both. I'm going to teach you both how to move energy and how to extract energy. And then what I want to tell you is this. I don't think there's really a right or a wrong answer. To the people who say you don't have to extract it, you just have to move it, they're probably right. And to the people who say you don't have to move it, you just have to remove it, they're probably right. And so what I would say is try these techniques on an area where you have discomfort. Or if you're working with a client and you've got something and they just really can't move it, and they've tried everything and nothing's working, and they don't want to do, like me, they don't want to do surgery and heavy doses of NSAIDs or steroidal medicines, then give it a go. You know what I mean? And see, because there are people who feel really strongly on both sides of that coin, and I'm not here to judge it. I think that whatever you feel is right for you is right for you. The people who say you shouldn't remove it, you should only move it, their theory is that if energy is in your field, you're meant to work with it. I don't know how you feel about that. But that has been those particular people's perspective. If you're having pain, it's there as a teacher. It's there as a messenger. So you don't necessarily want to remove it, but you want to teach your body and your central nervous system how to work around it. It's an interesting perspective. That's exactly right. Okay. Here's the other, I think, juicy tidbit for tonight. My concern in crystal healing is always about the fact that energy is sticky and it jumps. And I'm not just teaching you this because I've been taught this. I'm teaching you this because I've experienced it. And I have seen so many crystal healers come and go in just the 11 years that I've been doing Sage Goddess. I've seen people start and they're all excited about it, and then, they stop and you never hear from them again. And it's because they don't have good spiritual hygiene practices. When you are messing around with energy and trying to remove stuff and you're pulling stuff out of people's field, it can attach to you and it can jump from their field to your field. So the number one protocol that I always teach people, and sometimes I seem overprotective, I'm just trying to make sure you have a good experience, because I've had a lot of experiences and I worked with a lot of other people who've had very similar experiences too. If you're going to remove energy from your field, you want to give it permission and direction. So you want to dialogue, right, with that frequency and say, you have permission to leave this person or permission to leave me, and here's where you're going. Over here to this beautiful piece of earth, or down here into this portal, or over here into this flame, but you're not coming here, right? You're not going from point A to point B, right? One of the really cool things about double turn points is they take you out of the equation. If I'm working, and I'm not going to pull her up right now, but imagine my arm is Charlotta, right? If I'm working on Charlotta and this is Charlotta, and I'm using this wand to move energy through her field, right? My hand is touching the wand, but I'm setting the intention that the energy is moving through the crystal itself, not through me. And so because it's transmitting between the 2 points of the quartz itself, I'm not part of that equation. When I'm working with a single terminated tool, I have to be more careful, because what it's doing is gathering and releasing. And I have to make sure it's gathering from the client and not from me. Does that make sense? Or gathering from me and going into the client, or gathering from the client and coming to me. And some of the symptoms of this, by the way, are you getting sick after doing healing, you gaining weight, because excess energy that can't be metabolized by your system shows up as weight gain, right? So I have known a lot of healers who are quite ill themselves and very heavy physically. And part of it is the energy's not moving, right? I even have a friend as a dietitian and a nutritionist, and she actually runs a single or double term over her food before she eats it, and sets the intention that her body will easily and quickly metabolize the meal it's about to eat. And that's one of her weight loss tips and strategies, which I think is very interesting, right? So yeah, it's very, if you want to, I think the goal of being a healer should be sustainability. You don't want to be a healer for a day or a week or a month. And you should also be receiving the benefits of the healing process. But the benefits come from being outside the process and holding the space, not from being the person who now gets your client's illness and is holding it for them, and they feel better and you're lost your batteries, right? So yeah, it's really important. So intention and tools dictate the flow of energy and whether or not you're in the equation or out of the equation. The other thing to keep in mind too, and I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir, but it bears repeating just because there's always new people, right? The main distinction between people who kind of accidentally pick up other people's energy or don't is, where do you think the healing's coming from? Right? I'm a healer, me personally, but I'm not God. I'm not the divine. I'm not the, I set an intention for how I want energy to flow, but it's the energy itself that is the healer. It's the one with the power. I'm driving the car, I'm not the car, right? So the quality of my driving comes down to, do I have a map? Do I understand how to operate the vehicle? And do I know what my destination is, right? Am I clear on all those things? But if I think I'm the car, if I think it's all coming from me and I'm going to bestow upon you this incredible healing, which is weird to even say that, but if that's what I think is happening, that also makes me the source, and that also becomes incumbent upon me to hold that energy, and then it's coming from me, and then it's also returning to me. So again, it's through us, not of us, right? So you have to see yourself. There's a saying or a phrase in shamanism, the hollow bone, right? Like, you want to be the hollow bone. You want to be the channel for the energy to flow through. And I don't even like to consider myself the channel. I like to go like this and imagine that it's coming through this other this other channel that I'm creating through the sacred space and the circle that I open and all of that, right? So anyway, this is my philosophy, right? You may have teachers who say, no, you are the source, or you are the magic, or you are the whatever. I would just say that's a little bit of a cautionary tale for me, because I think the most important thing for those of us who are healers is to remember that on our best days, we're just the driver. We're just saying, I want this energy to go here. I want this flow to move here. I want to redirect the prana from here to here, right around that bulging disc or whatever it is. But I'm not the one saying, and now poof, I've made it happen for you. Right? We're the directors of the film. We're not the actors, right? Okay. Let me make sure I've gone over everything there. So the goal is to neutralize energy. When we can't neutralize it, we remove it. But I like to think of kind of like an order of operations. So if I can heal someone, facilitate healing for someone by neutralizing the energy versus extracting it, I'm going to try to neutralize it first. Okay, which means to transmute the frequency of it, or to shift the vibration of it, to figure out what the charge or the frequency is of that pain that they're experiencing. And if I can, to understand the root of it. That's the most powerful way to neutralize. Like, where is this coming from? What is this trying to teach this person? What's the lesson or the learning here? If I can answer all those questions, and I can figure out what the source of the challenge or the pain is, and then I can dialogue with it and neutralize it, transmute it into a higher letter frequency that doesn't cause the density that they experience as pain. Does that make sense? But if we can't neutralize it, then we can remove it, and that's where psychic surgery comes in. And then the other goal from my perspective is to transmute energy around ourselves versus repress it. I'm not one of those people, right, who is just like push through the pain, feel the burn. I really believe that pain is a divine message to you, and I really do believe that we should address pain when it's in its more benign forms and versus waiting for it to get worse, right? I'll go to the doctor when, kind of thing. I'll address it when it gets worse. It's only a 1 or a 2 out of 10. I'm going to wait till it's an 8 or a 9. So I think the earlier we can intervene. Remember, the universe knocks, and then it knocks louder, and then it bangs, and then it kicks your door down, right? Like, let's answer the universe when it's knocking, when that little tweak of whatever it is just getting your attention versus waiting for it to expand and become more powerful. Now, in service of talking to you about how all of this happens, I do want to say a word or two about helping spirits. And again, partly because we're focused on shamanism this month, and it's a relevant conversation. And I was going to show you too, this is my original extractor needle. We will talk about extractor needles tonight. This is my original tool. I took it out of my suitcase because I keep it in my suitcase, my original one. I get stopped most of the time in security because of it. But every time I've traveled without it, I've needed it. or wanted it. So now it just lives in my suitcase. I have TSA pre-check. The last 2 times through security, they did not stop me for it. But it does get awkward when they're like, hey, purple-haired lady, what you doing with that? And I'm like, I don't know, turn around. Does your back hurt? I'll show you. It's like, well, this is a weird conversation to have in the security line of LAX. But that is my original extractor needle from 7 or 8 years ago now. Okay. So when people ask, so who is doing the healing? I like to talk about helping spirits. Helping spirits. And who the helping spirits are and how you name them is partly a function of your spiritual training and your path and your tradition, okay? I was raised Christian. My grandmother was a minister, as most of you know. And so I was always taught that the Holy Spirit is our helping spirit, right? And so I still like to, and I printed up some different prayers to invoke the energy of the Holy Spirit. In the Christian tradition, as I was taught it anyway, the Holy Spirit is kind of a big gun. You don't really call on the Holy Spirit until you're in that place where you're not sure whether to move the energy or extract it, right? Like there's really something happening. There's a big, dense, heavy energy and you're not sure how to move it. In shamanism, they look at it a little bit differently. They look at the guides and guardians of the directions and the animal spirit allies as the helping spirits, or they look at the moon and the sun as helping spirits, right? Or they look at Great Spirit, source consciousness, right? But not necessarily what we call a Holy Spirit as part of a spiritual trinity. Yeah, so it doesn't really matter what your religion is. I'm going to give you a couple of versions of some different invocations to helping spirits tonight. And then if none of these resonate with you, you're not going to offend me because you can't offend me. So, because I'm very much about people feeling confident and good. And the reality is all religions are your religion and none of them are your religion, right? No matter who you are, and people say, oh, I'm not Jewish. I'm always like, yeah, not now. But you probably are in another timeline, or, oh, I'm not Christian, and it's like, not now. And a lot of the people I know who are most against things like Christianity were actually priests in past lifetimes and stuff, and so it's our relationship to religion is very sticky and complicated, right? So anyway, whatever you believe is great for me, because I know that you have been all these things, and so you may be rebelling against them in this lifetime or not identifying with them in this lifetime, but then in some other timeline, it's everything that you are, right? So I'm just going to read a couple of these to you, and then if you like it, you can work with them. Or what I would recommend is write your own. Take what I offer you tonight and write a brief invocation to your helping spirit or your helping spirits. And if you wouldn't mind, I would love it if you were willing to share yours in our Facebook group, because if you're like, I might end up reading yours or making changes to my own, based on what you offer. So if you're open to sharing it and inspiring all of us, I would also love to read your helping spirit prayer, if it makes sense to you. So here's some examples. Holy Spirit, our living hope, we long for your glory and power. Our hearts long to be overcome by your presence. Like a mighty rushing wind, I ask that you fill the space, baptizing us by fire, Spirit of truth, give us power in our weakness. Amen. That's a very short, sweet invocation to the Holy Spirit. And then here's an invocation to Jesus Christ, if that's an energy. A lot of people work with Jesus Christ for moving energy. Our Lord Jesus Christ, please give us spiritual wisdom and insight. Help us to understand the incredible greatness of your Holy Spirit's power and comprehend that power as living and breathing in us. Help us activate this power for our own purposes. Amen. Right? Yeah, these will be in the notes to you. Here's one that I kind of like, because it's not like Holy Spirit or God or Jesus. It's Holy Trinity, which could be any Trinity in any tradition, right? This could be a Norse Trinity. This could be a Celtic pagan Trinity. This could be, what would you think, like Hecate, Demeter, and Persephone Trinity, right? Like this could be any Trinity that you like. Holy Trinity, we thank you for the riches we have inherited. We thank that by your grace and power, we've been given the privilege of serving you and spreading the good news of your treasures and knowing you. Through your power, embolden us and guide us. through your words as we share your wisdom and truth with others. Amen. Or aho, or so it is, or ashe, right? Like, again, I think it's really cool that you would take this and customize it and make it your own in a way that resonates with you. And I will tell you, your friends and your clients and the people who trust you as a healer are going to really appreciate that whatever you say aligns to your deepest truth and your path as you know it.
Make it personal.
Yeah, totally make it personal to you, right? Here's one that's kind of more shamanic, for directional, indigenous in its nature. To the winds of the south, great serpent, wrap your coils of light around us. Teach us to shed the past the way you shed your skin, and how to walk softly on the earth in the beauty way. This is sort of more of a Lakota Sioux. To the winds of the west, Mother Jaguar, protect our medicine space. Teach us the way of peace, to live impeccably and show us the way beyond death. To the winds of the north, Hummingbird, Grandmother, Grandfather, Ancient Ones, come and warm our hands by your fire, whisper us on the winds. We honor who have come before us and who will come after us, our children's children. And to the winds of the east, Great Eagle Condor, come to us from the place of the rising sun, keep us under your wing. Show us the mountains we only dare to dream of, and teach us to fly wing to wing with great spirit. And then this one's cool too because it's got an above and a below. So Mother Earth, we've gathered for the honoring of all your children, for healing the stone people, plant people, four-legged, two-legged, creepy crawlers, finned, furred, and winged ones, and all our relations. Father, Son, Grandmother Moon, to the star nations, Great Spirit, you who are known by 1,000 names, and who are also the unnameable one, we thank you for bringing us together for healing and allowing us to sing the song of life. Aho. So that one's really pretty, isn't it? I mean, you know me and like the directions and the animal spirit allies. It just sings to my spirit. In the Inca, Hopi, Tibetan, and Mayan traditions, the elders would gather by fire, usually at a full moon, before they would do any healing ceremony at all. And they would dialogue with Grandfather Fire. And the fire element was considered the element that would remove or extract the energy. And again, this is in the Inca, the Mayan, Tibetan, and also the Hopi traditions. They would sit at what's called serpent level, knowing that they needed to be on the ground, connected to Mother Gaia. They would open their heart space, known as Jaguar space, to bring love and curiosity. They would open their minds through hummingbird medicine to connect at the level of the collective dream. And through Eagle, they would see the bigger picture before them and understand the totality of the healing that was necessary. So again, the transformational fire ceremony is always done at the full moon. Traditionally, you would go through fire ceremony for 3 to 5 years as an apprentice before you would be allowed to either lead them or go through them as a healer. So there was an apprenticing period too, which was very important. Okay. So again, if you have questions about anything that I've mentioned, my main goal in sharing all of that with you was just to be inclusive, because the last thing I will ever do as your teacher, ever, it just goes against my code of ethics, would be to suggest that there's one way to do things and any other way is wrong. That just has not been my experience. Yeah. Okay. So, the next step for tonight is to talk about the stones that are in Cosmic Stone and then just show you some techniques. And then it's all questions all the time. Yeah. I do have pictures for you too, and I do have our map. So I'm going to tell you about the stones. I'm going to show you where the stones come from, and then we'll show you some pictures too. So yeah, the prayers will all be transcribed in the notes from tonight's class, so don't worry about that. Yeah, everything will be captured right there for you. And then, like I said, cut and paste it and make it your own. And if you don't mind sharing it, I would absolutely love it. Okay, so in your one stone to rule them all, are 3 stones. We got really lucky at SG because we have friends in different parts of the world. In this case, it was someone in Brazil who said, hey, there's this new find, and we'll show you where it comes from. It's in the southeast.
I'm guessing Rosalind tried to verify and she wasn't able to get through to him, but
yeah,
I believe
we think it's from Rio Grande do Sul. Yeah, we'll show you. This is 3 stones in one. This is why, or 3 minerals in one, I should say. If you were with me in January when we studied Tibet, then you remember our lengthy conversations about carbon. carbon is the material that makes up shungite. And you know how people feel about shungite. And I'm a shungite lover too. I am. I believe in it 3,000%. If you're like, hey, does it really work? In my experience, it sure does. Because carbon and shungite is antibacterial, antimicrobial, and antifungal. It filters, it literally removes impurities from water. It's been used in water purification systems for thousands of years, going back to ancient Rome. And even today, wherever they manufacture shungite and tumble it and polish it and carve it, they also sell the powder, and that powder gets sold to water filtration companies to purify the water. So, and most of my clients put a tumbled piece of shungite in their water bottle, in their animals' water bowls. It really does cleanse, purify, and detoxify. And during kind of the whole COVID situation, a lot of people have worked with shungite. Shungite creates a purifying filter in the air. So there's, in my house, if you go into any room of my house, you're going to see shungite. There might be a little double turn point or I have a cube. In my crystal healing room, I have a sphere from, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago when we had them with the flower of life on it, which was my favorite sphere that we did. There is carbon in here. So this is like having shungite and quartz in one. But it gets better because there's a third mineral in this. So this is quartz with carbon and barite. That's why it's a little heavier than a traditional double term quartz point would be. And some of you were like, wow, it's a little heavier than I thought it was going to be. That's why. So when we got the call that there was this pocket in Brazil that opened up with this tripartite structure of the carbon with the barite and the quartz, we were really excited because it's like, okay, we know that carbon is what you're made of, right? Carbon is really the building block of human life, but that's because we come from the stars. We are basically just stardust, right? We are the result of exploding stars, and the stars are made of carbon. And one of the reasons Tibetan quartz from the Himalayan ridge in Tibet and Nepal is so powerful is it's got those black carbon inclusions in it. So the colors in this stone, all the black is carbon and all of the browny beige is barite. And it sits in a matrix of quartz, but this is largely barite and carbon. Now barite is my favorite meditation stone. And if you've been with me for a long time, you've heard me say that many, many times. When I have people who are like, I can't meditate, I can't shut off the voices in my head, you know what I mean? I can't shut off my to-do list. It's really hard for me to drop in. I can't pay attention. I can't focus. Barite is a stone that really helps to overcome all of your inner chatter and all of the obstacles that you perceive to a deeper state of meditation. Barite creates or activates what we call the flow state, okay? So carbon comes through to cleanse, detoxify, and purify, and barite comes in to flush and move that energy through your system. Now, what's interesting about barite, because you might say, well, couldn't copper do the same thing? Copper does. A copper, carbon, and quartz point would be really cool too. If they'd called us without, it would have said the same thing. Holy shit, let's get that today, right? So, but barite, for me, copper is more air element. Copper is like a through your system. It's almost like the breath, whereas for me, barite has more of a water element energy to it. It literally creates like a liquid flow of energy. And that's why it takes the kind of the monkey mind and it just runs a fountain over it. It's like, yes, I see all your thoughts and your mind racing and middle of the night anxiety and all this stuff, but I'm just gonna, right? Let that flow off into the river of possibility, right? Release that. Just like water takes everything from you, right? Imagine that you're standing at the edge of the shore and you could put all your worries and fears and anxieties in the water and just watch the waves take it. That's what barite does. So for me, barite has this divine flow state energy that almost no other gem and mineral has. So it's going to cleanse and purify, and then it's going to move through your field to help you release. Here's where barite gets really interesting, and this shit does not apply to copper. Okay, so that's why, like, given a choice, I would still choose this one with barite over an option that would come with copper, and here's why. In the Native American and indigenous traditions, barite's well known, and it's been worked with for hundreds of years. They call it the shapeshifter stone, and they work with it, especially Native American tribes in the United States, work with it for vision quest. So they would send little pieces of barite out on vision quests with people. And it was supposed to help them shift from human to spirit ally back to human and keep them safe through the shape-shifting process. So maybe that's part of why consciously or subconsciously I've always seen it as a really deep meditation stone, because it will kind of get you out of your human monkey mind head and help you envision yourself as a crow flying away, or as a jaguar moving through the rainforest. It kind of gets you into a different zone and a different mindset, and it facilitates a trance state. Native American tribes also work with it for astral travel, inner vision, and activating the dream state, what they call the dream state. It resolves psychological blockages and barriers. So whereas a lot of times we have physical blockages that create pain, because that stuck energy gets stuck in our body and our muscles and in our tissues, and it creates arthritis and inflammation. Same thing happens in our minds. How many of you get stuck in your thoughts? I mean, I do. I'll just be honest. Like I will, sometimes I have to really force myself to stop thinking about something or overthinking about something. All the what ifs. But then what if that? And if I do that, then what if that? Well, and if he does that, then what are they going to do? It's like the what I call the domino effect, right? And you can really get stuck and kind of spin on those cycles. This stone not only helps you to move physical blockages, but the psychological blockages that create anxiety attacks. So if you're stuck in that loop of like, if this, then that, and you're making yourself crazy, barite's really good for that. The number one stone that I would partner these three with that isn't here is danburite. And that's because in this Energy 12 configuration that Robert Simmons so famously created, the danburite stone, which primarily comes from northern Mexico now at this point, although there's been pockets and deposits in Russia and other places in the world, barite is known as the psychic surgeon of this Energy 12. So if there's one stone that if you're like, but is there anything else I need? Some copper would be good, and some danburite in this one. And honestly, other than that, and maybe some obsidian. The Aztecs would say, but you can't do it without obsidian. Those six, danburite, copper, obsidian, and then barite, and your carbon and your quartz, are really the only 6 minerals in the entire gem and mineral world that I would recommend to you for moving and extracting unwanted energy. Interesting, right? And it doesn't mean that there aren't other stones that have important jobs, right? There are certain stones like bloodstone, axonite, and natrolite that help to reduce inflammation. And those are helpful for pain relief because pain is often a source of, a result of inflammation. But those are the 6 that I think are really important. And remember, you can program quartz to behave as any other mineral. So if you're worried about the intensity of the vibration of your quartz, then all you have to do is program it to avoid the effects of that. I will tell you that when you have carbon and barite mixed with quartz, and you look at the construction of this tool, quartz is taking a back seat to the carbon barite matrix, right? Quartz is there almost like the glue to hold them together, but 90% of the stone is carbon and barite. So I think it sort of already naturally counteracts the effects of the higher vibration. Okay, so that is a summary of all the stones that are here. I do want to say, I would love to get into the little scrub that we gave you too, and I hope you love it. This is orange with orange blossom and coffee, and it's coffee CO2. It's a pure essential oil extract of coffee from the coffee bean in a little scrub. So what's nice to do is remember that skin is the largest organ on your body. So the reason we gave you a scrub is before you're going to do extraction work. I always did this with my shoulder when I was working on it. Clear the skin. You don't want to have, and you know me, I'm not the cleanest birdie on the planet, right? I'm not an advocate of taking showers every day. I don't really like water. But I do take salt baths every day. And I do believe that it's important to keep your skin clean and clear as a healer because it absorbs so much energy through the day. That's why I'm constantly smudging my skin with white sage smoke, and I do like to cleanse with salt, and a good scrub always helps. I also thought this was an important tool because a lot of you It shouldn't be too hard, but it is a little bit on the harder side. You can add just a little bit of water to it, or a little bit of jojoba. If you scrape your finger down just a little bit, I can't see who asked if it was supposed to be hard, but if you scrape your finger down and mix it, you will stir it back up to the softer part, and you can add just a little bit of water or a tiny, just little drop of jojoba oil to it, and it will soften right back up for you. We didn't want it to be too oily, so it's always this like fine balance between the two. So anyway, that's kind of the idea behind a scrub, is just prepping the skin. And salt is so important. Salt is the ultimate physical detoxifier. And when I say I take a salt bath every day, I carry a tub of my salt blend in my suitcase, like just a little 4-ounce jar of it, because no matter where I am in the world, I have to get salt on my body at the end of the day. And my team would tell you this, like, if I travel and I forget it, the first thing I have to go to CVS and get Epsom salt. And it's happened before, like in Tucson and stuff.
It happened in Denver, yeah.
Yeah. No, I have to go get Epsom salt. Like, I didn't have my little tub of salt, and it's like, are you kidding? I can't go, I mean, especially at a gem show, I can't go a whole day without salt. So it might seem weird AF, but I'm telling you, it's one of my little secret tips. If you want to know how I keep my energy clear working with millions of people around the world, it's because I literally work with salt 365 days. And if I can't get into water with salt, I will just put the salt in a little dish, and I will just at least touch it and touch my third eye and touch my wrists and touch my feet, just because even just the presence of salt is very detoxifying. So yeah, salt all day long is very important. So what I was going to show you just real quickly, and then I'm going to show you some tips and techniques. So we'll start the Q&A portion in about 15 minutes or so. Most of the quartz, clear quartz, smoky quartz, rose quartz, amethyst, citrine, and then agate, and also chalcedony too, comes from South Brazil, Rio Grande do Sul, which is the southernmost point of the country of Brazil, right? Now, up here, right here. Sorry, I don't have my glasses on, so sometimes I look like I'm blind. Yeah, maybe, yeah. That way I can look at it without. Let me just get some. If you're young, don't get old. Highly don't recommend it.
Let me just get some of this stuff.
But it allows you to have glasses, which is kind of exciting. Okay, there we are. So over here is Ministerias. See this right here? Minasgerais. Minas Gerais, Brazil, and the state right to the left of your screen, which is Goiás. And Goiás is sort of, Rosalind on our team, who's Brazilian, was kind of explaining this to us. Goiás is up and coming for gems and minerals, right where Alexis's index finger is. It's the yellow state right there. And then right to the side of that is Minas Gerais in red. Now, Minas Gerais is where the diamonds in Brazil come from. Brazil's not a major producer of diamonds. It's not. I mean, 99% of diamonds still in the world are coming through Africa. But there are some diamonds in Brazil, and if they're coming from Brazil, they're coming from Minas Gerais. Tourmaline is coming from Sao Paulo, which is just to the west of Rio. That's where most of the tourmaline mines are. And tourmaline really does kind of grow in a very concentrated area of Brazil. What you need to know about Lemurian quartz is it's coming from the north of Minas Gerais. And let me show you. What's interesting for me, I don't know if this is interesting to you, in Brazil, Minas Gerais politically is kind of a conservative area. And so for most of our most powerful spiritual crystals to come from kind of a spiritually conservative place is interesting to me. Don't you think? I don't know. Just a little tidbit for your knowledge. So this is just a secondary map, just to kind of zoom in for you a little bit. So this is the exact region where Lemurian quartz is coming from. So this is Minas Gerais. It's coming from the northern part of the state. It's called the State Park of Serra do Cabral. And so that red point, let me zoom out just a little bit so you can see. That red point is where most of your Lemurian quartz crystals are coming from. And you can see it's closer to this side of the coast. You've got Peru over here, so almost opposite it directly. Pretty cool, right? Yeah, so it's a conservative area. It's a beautiful area. The other thing to note, I find these kind of cultural tidbits interesting. A lot of people who live in Minas Gerais would tell you, 50, 60 years ago, people were coming and they were looking for crystals, but it wasn't like the whole point of life. Now, if you're driving through Minas Gerais, like there'll be a little, how kids set up like lemonade stands here in the U.S.? The kids will have little crystal stands, which is great. I mean, it's kind of like what happened in Tanzania, where like originally very few people were mining tanzanite, and now tanzanite is the main source of economic strength in Tanzania. It's kind of the same thing that's happening in Minas Gerais. So instead of having a lemonade stand, you would have a crystal stand on the side of the road. And that happens all the way up the streets to the mines. Okay, so let me have my assistant, please.
Me or Charlotte?
Oh, Charlotte.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, let's get her up here. I just want to make sure she's in line with the camera where everybody can see what I'm doing. So we're going to set this up for you real quick. Make sure you can see. And I'm going to teach you some techniques. Well, I would stop at your crystal stand. If I was driving through Minas Gerais and there was spiritually conservative, meaning sort of quite religious area, is the way it's been described to me. But then we think of Lemurian crystals as having this wisdom from an ancient civilization that probably more spiritually conservative people would be like, excuse me? So there was a civilization that submerged into the water 13 to 15,000 years ago and was here to experience divine light and love, but we had no proof of that? Well, you know what I mean? I don't know. No tidbits. Now, let's see. Can you, pull that back just a little bit. Yeah, that's perfect, Alexis.
Is that better?
Yeah, that's super, super good.
Oh, how's that?
Yeah, she's good. Her one arm has fallen off, but she's comfortable. She likes it.
So she likes it.
She enjoys it. Okay. So you guys can see Charlotta. She got her mostly in that picture. And we're mostly going to be working with her torso here, darling. I don't really need her legs, although we can show you some different things too. So we've taught you over the year quite a few physical healing techniques, but I want to show you actually, let me get the top of her head in the camera. I might need to pull it back just a little bit more. I can pull her forward too. There we go. That's good. Yeah, that's pretty good. Okay. Remember that what I taught you is that energy gets expelled here and here, right? So these are the two places in your body where naturally energy can release itself, right? So one of the things that's important to do when you're first deciding where you need to go in with your tools is to work with your pendulum. So, and you can actually first run your pendulum through the energy field, starting at the crown, to ask if there are blockages at the crown. And it's saying no. Blockage at the third eye, blockage at the throat, blockage at the heart, blockage at the solar plexus, blockage at the sacral, and blockage at the root. Now, Charlotta generally doesn't have a lot of energetic blockages because she's not experiencing a lot of emotional challenges or physical challenges in her life. But if you did have a blockage, that would be one place you'd want to look. Then the next thing you can do with your pendulum is go through and ask a secondary question, which is, let's imagine that we have a blockage. Mine was showing up as a heart chakra blockage when it was my shoulder, which was very interesting because I tend not to have a heart chakra blockage, but it's the energy center, if you think about it, that's closest to your shoulders, right? So it makes sense given the proximity. So what you can do is, let's say you were like me and it was saying, yes, there's a heart chakra blockage. Then you can ask, is it okay to move the energy, to transmute the energy? Or is it better to extract the energy, to remove the energy? And mine would always say the same thing this one does, which is you just need to move it, you don't need to extract it. You can actually see my pendulum switching to reflect that answer. So, and like I said, It's always preferred if you can just move rather than, or move rather than remove, right? Shift rather than extract. Because the reality is, when you shift energy in your body, you're still working with the energy. So if it's meant to teach you something, if there's a lesson attached to it, you're not throwing that out the window and playing God, right? You're just moving it so that the discomfort associated with it isn't bothering you so much, right? Okay. So once we figure out where the energy is blocked, my first activity as a crystal healer, and I should back up and say, you should, when you're doing any kind of intense energy work, it's always good to open a circle. The nice thing about having a tool like this is you can actually use this double term to open a circle around you. And some people secondarily will open a circle around the client too. I always figure a circle that includes me includes my client, because remember, it extends 2 feet beyond wherever you draw the perimeter. And you don't have to say it out loud. A lot of people don't like to, but it is nice just to acknowledge the 4 directions and the guardians of those gateways. So just welcoming in energies of air in the east, fire in the south, water in the west, and earth in the north. I'm a big fan of hands on my client, especially if I know that's okay. Some of you work as a crystal healer in places where you can't touch people, which is okay too. But I have rarely ever worked on people that I didn't know very well, and they all usually preferred physical touch and contact. So, and I would always let my intuition just kind of guide where my hands would go. And interestingly enough, as a crystal healer, when I would kind of be moving my hands through their field, they would say, oh, right where you have your left hand, or oh, right where you have your right hand. So my hands would naturally kind of find their way. The more you work with your hands as a crystal healer, you will find that whether or not you have the gift of intuitive touch. But if you do, it's really amazing, because your clients will start to tell you, wow, every time you move that right hand, you're in a different place, or I've got pain. Like, how did you know where to go? So using your hands and trusting that wherever you're placing your hands is probably being guided. And then the other thing I found too is it's nice before you begin just to go through, and you can do this on yourself too, just to gently turn the head and the body from side to side. And I like to work 2 chakras at a time. This is also a really powerful energetic moving technique. Now here's what I'm going to tell you. I even do this to my animals. The kids would tell you. I do this to my cat and my dog. And you want to see your animals go into a trance? It might sound really crazy. Animals need their energy moved too. They really, really do. So I will tell you, literally, I will hold my cat and my dog on my lap and just do this. And just this. Like, if I had Alexis on the table right now and I was doing this, I could put her to sleep. It's very soothing. You'd be amazed, like just gently rocking the body. So you can do it to yourself too, like you can do it at your own tempo, but just gently rocking the body in these places is very soothing and very comforting. And like I said, even with my animals, we'll put them into a minor trance. But it's a beautiful way to begin. And I like to always end, if the client's okay with it, with a hand over the sacral and a hand at the crown to just, again, move the energy through the body. A lot of massage therapists will do this too. If you've had body work done, where they will just start by moving right over your legs and moving over your arms. They're doing the same thing. They're just trying to begin, they'll grasp your hand. They're just trying to begin by moving the energy. But all forms of life respond. Okay, now, if you're moving energy, but not extracting energy, we're going to talk about that first. So let's say you're me, right? And you've got shoulder pain. And so we're working between the throat and the heart chakra. The first thing you want to do is identify where the blockage is, and you want to find what I call a balance point on the other side. So you want to move the energy between the side where the blockage is existing and the other side. What that does, every time you work in energy work by balancing the meridians, you automatically create a flow of energy. And again, you can continue rocking the body while you do this. So point to point. If your pain is at the back of your neck, you're having migraines, right? And usually migraines respond to gentle pressure at the pressure points right here at the back of the head. You're going to want to go from side, where the pain begins, to the other side, and back and forth. And what you need to imagine, if you're a visual person like me, this is how I do it, is I'm literally imagining the point, gathering the stuck energy here, running it through the termination, and the termination now entering the field on the other side. So if you think about it, the goal of all energy healing is balance, right? Isn't that what we always say? We're not trying to clear our chakras, we're trying to balance our chakras, right? We're trying to align the chakras. So if the goal of all energy work is balance, then we can release pain by distributing it through the same meridian line, okay? And again, the same thing goes for your entire central channel. So let's say you've got a disc, right? What we want to do is find out where that disc pain is located, attach here. Imagine that pain leaving through the termination, and then finding, and use your intuition, or you can use a pendulum to ask, where would be the balance point? And wait for the pendulum to turn. And mine's turning right here. So then this is the balance point for this meridian, and then I would bring it here and back. Here and back. And again, you can be moving the system while you're doing it, right? It's super comforting. Again, if this was an actual person, I'd have her asleep by now, right? She'd be like, oh, don't stop, don't stop, don't stop, right there. So, and it works. You know, my son is a pitcher, and I'm always moving energy in his arms and trying to teach him how to balance by taking the energy, the pain from the one dominant, his right arm, which he pitches with, over to the left side. So that is the balancing of energy with a double term in particular. Now, if you want to remove energy, this is not a Vogel, but you can work with it in much the same way. Okay, Vogels are more effective at removing energy because they have more facets on the side, and because they have a wider end that's feminine and a more narrow end that's masculine. So they have a more defined gathering point and releasing point on them than a traditional equidistant double term. Does that make sense? And we did a class on Vogels before, so you can always refer back to that class.
There's a free class that's pinned in the
and there's a free class too.
Tabs of your Facebook group. And we did a class on it in Crystal Masters.
We did. Yeah, so you can look at either of those. If you were enrolled, you can go back to your class, or you can do the quick and dirty on YouTube, which is still pretty good. Okay, now if you're going to release energy, like you're like, Athena, it's not helping, and my neck is still really got that tension right there. And let's say the point of tension is right here, and we've already done the balancing, right? And we've already tried balancing with other parts of the body. Because sometimes the lower back is stronger than the neck. So if a client says, no, it's not helping to release it to the other side of the neck, I'll say, okay, well, let's try releasing it to a stronger part of your body. And the lower part of your spine and your hip and buttock area are much stronger in terms of the muscles. So sometimes balancing to a stronger part of the body will be a more effective technique. But let's say all of that didn't work, okay? So now what we're going to do is we're going to release, we're going to extract. And you can take the one end, you can only do this with a double term, a Vogel, or an extractor needle. You're going to take one end of the point. Imagine gathering, almost like you're taking, almost like you're cleaning a wound, is the way I look at it. You're just gathering up energy. And you can use your pendulum to ask when you're done. I just use my intuition, but you can ask and wait for it to shift direction. Will tell you when you've gathered up all the energy. And then you release. Now, you can release to the table in front of you, the floor in front of you. If you've got a candle lit, you can release to the flame, which is releasing to fire. The table and the floor are earth. The candle flame is fire. You can have a glass of water and release into the glass of water, which is releasing to water. Or you can release it to air. I'm not a fan of releasing to air because I just like to release it into something I can see. I have friends who release to air. They're like, oh, it's just out now in the air. And I'm like, how do you know that that's not going to reverberate and because energy jumps? So I like to release it to earth, to fire, or to water are my preferences. I also have another friend who keeps just a little jar on her altar, her healing space, of actual soil from her garden. And she returns it to the little pot of soil on her altar too, which you can do.
Would sage smoke be considered releasing to air?
Yeah, sage smoke is good, and at least with sage smoke you can see it. Or copal smoke. Palo Santo smoke would be really good, right? We know Palo Santo's all the smoke of copal, white sage, and Palo Santo is antibacterial and antimicrobial. So, but don't just release it like my friend does to like poof, now it's released. It's like I need to see it go into an element, me personally, before I feel okay about it, right? What can you not see? Let me know, because from my direction, Coco, I think this is probably the clearest vision I can bring you. But yeah, let me know what you're not seeing, and I can try to adjust for you. Salt's great too. Yeah, Sean, I love salt too for releasing. Okay, so that is releasing with this wand versus balancing and transferring. Does that make sense? So balancing and transferring is keeping the energy in the body, and then releasing is extracting, right? Calling the energy up from the space itself, and with the other end, releasing it down to an elemental surface. Okay, now, the other tool you can use for removing energy, and I just want to share this with you because some people are not familiar, is called an extraction needle.
I think they just want you to move her a little bit this way.
Okay, is that better?
Or,
yeah, because that way I'm not competing with me.
Yeah.
So maybe you can, you don't need to see me right now, you need to see her. Extraction needles are single terminated, so they're rounded on one end. We created the concept at Sage Goddess because I found my original one and then I had them made. And then they have a very sharp needle-like point. Here's some differences. It's single terminated versus double terminated. Got to be a little more careful that your own energy isn't in the mix. This point on an extraction needle is much sharper than the point of a double terminated wand. It's literally a needle. It can break skin. I have used extraction needles to break skin in ceremony before because in some ceremonies and in some traditions, working with your own blood is important. That doesn't happen very often and you don't ever have to do it, but sometimes I will use blood if I'm really trying to strengthen a ritual or ceremony that I'm doing. And it's always just a drop, but it is nice to draw your own blood with something sacred like this. If you're ever going to do that, I'm not going to show you that right now, but if you're ever going to do that, make sure you clean this with rubbing alcohol first before you cut, and then make sure you clean your skin with rubbing alcohol too. That's just good hygiene in general. For our purposes of extraction, I do like to recommend a process that is really super, feels super good. If you have an extractor needle and you have not done this before, I do like to recommend that on the area where most of the energy is going to be released, that you go up there first and make a clockwise circle all the way around the crown chakra. Be very gentle. Again, you're not trying to draw blood. You're just trying to kind of stimulate the surface of the skin, and it feels really good. You do that in your hairline, and it's like, ooh, it's like, and you can do it on the soles of your palms of your hands. I like it. I just find it very activating. As a healer, you can do this before ceremony. What it does is it activates all the chakras in the parts of your body that tend to hold and release energy. So the top of your head, the perineum, and then the palms of your hands and the soles of your feet. Doesn't it feel good? It's like, ooh. And what's really cool about this, if you've never tried it, is after a minute or two, you can still feel it. Like, it still feels like I'm pricking it, even though I'm not anymore. Like, it holds the energy of it, of the experience. So you want to do that just on the top of the head, just to kind of get the energy moving very, very gently. If Charlotta screams, I'm pushing too hard. And then you want to find out, again, where that pain is, where it's sitting. If they forgot or you forgot, use your pendulum. And then you want to use the rounded end to, again, go in and gather, pull in the energy. And you're focused with your intention here, which is to gather all of the energy into the wand. You're not trying to pull the energy into your body or your arm or anything. All that energy is going only into that tool, and then you're releasing. And the energy is coming into the tool, all pain, all illness, anything that's stuck and not moving and not serving the highest good, and releasing. And that's as simple as that. The main difference between this and a regular double terminated wand is the sharpness of the termination on this end, which allows you to activate the energy. What you can also do is activate the area before you extract and then seal it counterclockwise after you extract. And a lot of clients that I worked with really like that process. And then again, I like to come in and balance the field. And then as I still like to come in with a double term and move the energy from chakra to chakra, from the crown to the root and back. And then the last step, as always, because we never want to open a circle without closing a circle, it's bad protocol. And if you're like me, your spirit guides will be like, knock, knock, you didn't close your circle. But sometimes they don't tell you, and then you're just leaving your client in an open circle of energy. So you always want to close the circle after, give thanks to the guides and the guardians of the 4 elements, and release them. So we end with earth. So we begin with earth, so releasing the guardians of earth, water, fire, and air with gratitude. That's right. So that is Cosmic Stone, the contents of it, the formation of that wand, the pros and cons of that, different tools and techniques and ways to incorporate that into your routine, and then some additional tidbits about shamanism that kind of tie tonight's content back to Soul Shift. So with a breath, I'm going to stop talking directly at the camera and turn my attention to the feed, and just spend the next hour and 10 or 15 minutes just focused on your questions now to see what's on your mind. And we can go anywhere you want. You know, there's so many different aspects of this particular side of crystal healing. And I know it's kind of out on a limb to talk about working between dimensions and timelines. The way you incorporate those other timelines and those other dimensions is through your intentions. So when I'm working with someone on healing, I like to ask, when did you start feeling this pain? Describe for me a time and an age when you did not have this pain. So they'll say, oh, well, when I was in my 20s, I was athletic, I never had any pain, you know, or even just last year I was feeling great. And so in my mind, I'm now calling in their 20-year-old volleyball playing self, or I'm calling in their self from 2021 to be my ally in the healing process, and asking if there's parts of their DNA from that time that can be transferred or moved between fields so that they can have more of that stamina and that energy and that, does that make sense, from that previous time? Let's see. Yes. Katrina, yeah, I'm going to go back up in the feed.
Yeah, they're asking for information on the Tao shape of the wand.
Yeah, so that is the number of sides and terminations. Did we determine that they all have it, Alexis?
Yeah, they were listed as Tao point wands.
Yeah. So the different sides and facets of the crystals, I'll probably just leave that to Karen and Alexis to put a little blurb in the feed for you about it, because it just comes down to the sides and facets. But Tao points in particular are thought to be physical healers. And so that's the most important part. And what was really interesting about these, and we were amazed actually that all of them were, we went through and she's affirming that they QC'd it. Because when they first came in, I'm like, but are they all Tao? Like, it's very rare to get a whole lot of wands, like a whole collection of wands that all is, but they were consciously terminated to have the Tao facets. And so it's about the number of facets on the alternating side. So if you count, you've got your 3 and 5, and then 3 and 5, and then 3. So let me show you how this works.
I'm finding the information.
Let me show you on the other camera. So a Tao point, do you see the little tiny 3-sided triangle right here? And then they'll put more written information in the feed for you. You see how this little tiny face is a triangle? 1, 2, 3 sides. And then this face has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then it alternates to a triangle. See 1, 2, 3 right here? And then it alternates to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
So this one is 3 and 5. There's also 3 and 7 Dao ones,
which is rarer. The 3 and 7 is more rare.
Mm-hmm.
And the 3 and 7, I have a 3-7 Dao. They tend not to be as these are very even. If you look, they look like little houses. The little pentagons, don't they? Like a roof and a. The 3-7s tend not to be as symmetrical. Some people say, now this is in line with everything that we learned, right, from Marcel Vogel, who taught us that the more sides or facets a crystal has, the faster the spin of energy or rotation of energy that flows through it. So some people believe that a 3-7 Dao is more powerful than a 3-5 Dao. It's a benefit in whatever way. Yeah, they call it, that's all right, Lynn Electra's correct. They call it a trans-channeler, a 3-7. And some people believe that's more powerful. Okay. Thank you for remembering to talk about that, because that's very important. Crystals and Such says, I always break my needle and I don't know how to prevent it. So here's the shitty part about working with crystals for healing. Are you ready? Sometimes they're going to break. And, I spend a lot of time in social media. I know you do too. And I feel like sometimes there'll be 5, 6, 7 posts in a day of people who are like, my crystal broke, what do I do? My crystal broke, what do I do? It's probably one of the number one things our customer support team responds to. Your crystals break most of the time because of the intense flow of energy through them. And it's a message to you, right? In some traditions, the breaking of a crystal is like, you did it. Like, the energy line is complete. So if you're running a lot of energy through a crystal, or your own energy flow is really intense, or the customer, the client, their energy flow is really intense. I have a friend who's a shaman. He can't wear a watch. He wants to, but every single watch he's ever bought, including really nice timepieces, just stops working. He can't do it. Like the amount of energy he's running, the frequency is too high. And it just makes, I actually saw it with my own eyes, like how time on his watch, when I was with him one time, we were doing a class together, and like his watch didn't move the same way other people's did. So it's this really interesting thing. Like, some people can't keep crystals without breaking them, but it's about the frequency that you're running. And it isn't necessarily a bad thing, because usually it's a super high frequency that breaks a crystal. So, okay, good. How can you tell if your desert rose is gypsum or barite? Desert rose is gypsum. It will sometimes have minor barite content. Barite tends to be, and Alexis told me some of those are over there are barite. Which one is it? The blue one?
Oh,
okay. We have some barite at stagegoddess.com. We don't have a lot. We usually have more. We have some bigger pieces in our like gem sale section. So if you're looking like for bigger, sort of master crystal size pieces, but we do have these little pieces of blue. Barite tends to be a somewhat translucent mineral, whereas your desert rose tends to be very opaque. Barite does grow in kind of like a golden brown color. In particular, the pieces that come from Morocco, you're going to find blue like this, and you're going to find kind of a sandy beige color of barite too, but it tends to be more translucent when it's not in gypsum. So that's a great question. Can you use your crackle double terminated quartz? Yes. And what's interesting about crackle quartz, and some people love it, some people don't, and you know me, I'm never going to judge, and I'm not here to tell you one thing's better than the other. But part of the reason I like crackle quartz, Christina, is you know how they make it, right? They take decent quality quartz, good clear quartz in Brazil, and they heat it in an oven, and then they plunge it into ice water. And then back in the oven, and back in ice water, and back in the oven, and back in ice water, until it shatters inside. And they have this kind of proprietary technique. So some people call it fire and ice quartz. But what's really cool about it for me is it has this like alchemical, because it's been exposed to different parts of the heating and cooling process, it almost has an alchemical energy to it, meaning the ability to transform between elements and states of awareness and consciousness. And so for me, it makes an even more potent healing tool because it has the elements of fire and the element of water imbued into it. Its very structure is created by it. So Can I explain dominant oscillatory rate? Let me give you a short explanation, Nicole, and then if you want to read about 30 pages about it, wait for my book.
You also talked a lot about it in your free wands.
Yeah, I did. I went into kind of a long description too, Nicole. So that free class is over on YouTube if you want to watch it. I actually wrote so much about DOR in the new book that I know my editor is going to take 90% of it out because I thought it was fascinating, but it's like way too academic. I was really getting into the technicalities of DOR. But I'm going to give you like the 2-second version, Nicole, and then refer you to YouTube and tell you that my book will be out in June. Just because we could spend the whole hour talking about that. So the dominant oscillatory rate. The reason crystals work, okay? Honestly, at the end of the day, nuts and bolts, how do crystals work and why do they work? Is because they have what's known as a lattice structure. LATTICE. So every crystal that you work with, every single one, all the ones here behind me on the shelf, everything on our entire website, except for the amorphous crystals, which would be your opals and your tektites and your obsidians, which were formed through either meteoric collision, like amber from resins of trees, or through natural lava flow, which would create bumblebee jasper is another amorphous stone because it's a lava-based material. And all of your obsidians are lavic glass. I'm trying not to give you the academic description, and it's really hard. So let me back that up. So anyway, anything that's not amorphous has a dominant oscillatory rate, meaning your crystals grow in a lattice structure, and every molecule of your crystals has the same structure. So, but the human body does not have one dominant oscillatory rate. We have what we call competing oscillatory rates. So your digestive system has one dominant oscillatory rate, your endocrine system, your circulatory system, everything in your body has a different dominant oscillatory rate. So they're competitive. Your crystals do not. So the way crystals work, Nicole, is through entrainment. So if your oscillatory rate, let's say you're having an anxiety attack, so the oscillatory rate, if there is a dominant one, would be a very high frequency. You can work with a crystal that has a lower oscillatory rate to stabilize and centralize your central nervous system and calm you down. Does that make sense? So you've got every crystal in your collection obeys the laws of physics according to the crystal structure for that particular mineral, and each one of those crystal structures has its own dominant oscillatory rate, and it's consistent across all molecules inside the crystal. That's the shortest version I can give you. But it's a great question. I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad you're enjoying class. I always wanted a class like this as I was coming up and learning about stones. Like, I would have given anything to have a class like this. And so I've tried to create the program that I really wanted. And I also try to meet you where you are. So my hope is if you're new to crystals, I'm not overwhelming you, you're following. And that if you're really experienced, which some people in the feed are super experienced, that you're still going, oh, there's still something interesting here, or I didn't know that, or I'm hearing that for the first time. So I really try to make sure that the content appeals to a diverse audience. Let's see. Could balancing energy cause issues in another part of the body? That's where intention comes into play. Remember that you're not just depositing energy. You're not just moving it from one place. And so I'm not just taking my neck pain and putting it in my butt, right? I'm creating an exchange or a flow of energy, right? You could say the same thing with acupuncture. Well, if they place the needle here and they reroute the energy down here, wouldn't the pain now exist there? But it doesn't. It's because you're not picking up and putting down. You're creating a channel for energy to flow where right now it's stuck. So it's kind of like if you've ever been somewhere or traveled somewhere where there's a lake and it's flowing freely, but then it gets to a certain kind of a neck where there's a huge boulder and the water's not moving and it's kind of backing up, and you move that boulder and now the water can flow between the 2 points, right? It's not like picking up a cup of water and putting it down at the end of the river and now it's stuck down there. You're creating flow. But it's a great question. It says, Shauna says, during the process, you open the crown, then you open the affected area chakra 2 circles. If you want to. I like to, what I was showing you there was, I like to open at least one of what I call the body portals. So let me remind you of what that means. again, and if you've ever anybody done psychotropic breath work where you you do the doggy pant, and then you stop and your whole body tingles and you get kind of like, they call it the lobster claw because sometimes you can't move your hands. It's a little weird, but I like it. Your body releases energy naturally through your hands, your feet, your perineum, and your soft spot on the crown of your head. Those are the 4 main places your body releases energy. That's also mostly where you pick up energy. That's why it's so important every single day. Every single day. I haven't done it today, so I'm going to do it just to show you. It's really important, and you can do this before and after and include this as part of your crystal healing protocol. Just light the very edge of your white sage and let the smoke come up through your fingers. Because again, your body is receiving and sending through your hands and through the top of your head and, downtown. And then you can do that again at the end of the session so that you're not holding any energy. So yes. So I like to open at least one of those portal places to activate. Remember I told you have to give energy permission and a direction to be released. And I also explained that you don't have to just release energy to an element. The body itself is an expert at releasing its own energy. Your body, and this may be one of the most important things I teach you tonight. Your body and mind, its entire goal is to be healthy. I talk to doctors all the time in the work that I do, and they will say, you know what? If your digestive system is screwed up, if you clean up your diet for a week or 2, it'll start to heal and self-regulate. If your liver's screwed up from drinking too much and you stop drinking for a week or 2, your liver starts to regenerate. Your body wants to reach a state of healing and wellness, and it will find that pathway on its own as long as you give it the appropriate conditions to do that. So there's a certain amount, for me anyway, of crystal healing that relies on my body's own innate wisdom and my trust in the client's own body's innate wisdom. And then the other part you have to trust in is in your intuition and your ability to track energy, which is a shamanic term. But that's what we're doing as healers, is we're tracking energy in the system. That's why we use our pendulum. That's why I use my non-dominant hand sometimes to track and feel over a client's. When I'm moving their body, usually I'm moving it with my left hand, not my right hand, which is my writing hand, because I can feel my intuition in my left hand. I mean, even now, even if I just close my eyes, I can feel what I'm moving around with my left hand and visually track it. With my right hand, the screen is darker and the energy doesn't flow. So my left hand will get very tingly and warm when I'm over a hot spot, and then with my right hand, though, I won't be able to track the energy as effectively. So Jen says, so I've done healing and I've gotten ill afterwards, so what am I doing wrong? Could be a couple things. And again, this is just world according to Athena. But these are the things that I've seen people do that have led to them taking it on themselves. So the number one thing is not working with an intention. So as you're opening that circle and you're honoring and acknowledging the guides of the different directions, that's the time to set your healing intention for your client. And I like to have the client set their intention too, and it's perfect if they can express it out loud. And it can be as simple as, my intention is for my shoulder not to hurt. It doesn't have to be like some magical, mystical, invocation or whatever. It can just be like, my intention is to stop crying every day because I miss my mom, or whatever it is, right? So, but having the client set an intention and having yourself setting the intention, right? That way you're not subconsciously moving your own energy, for example. I've had that happen where the person is working on a client, but they're thinking about their own. They're kind of projecting onto the client they're working with. And so now their energy fields are entangled, and that's how the mess starts to happen. So I always say, make sure you are completely focused on the person you're working with in front of you. No thoughts about yourself, no thoughts about your own process. Like, you get to sit outside the door until that session is over. Not opening a circle, not clearing the sage before and after, are other techniques. Not calling on ally spirits. Because if I'm working with the Holy Spirit or the Trinity or the guides and guardians of the 4 directions, that's my backup. And they're going to make sure that I'm not taking on the energy. Does that make sense? So, and again, it's always, for me too, it's this deferential thing about, I'm not doing this. I am a gifted healer, but I am not a gifted psychic surgeon. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm not the one that's extracting the energy. I'm not a deity. I'm just a servant. I'm just somebody with tools and wisdom. And I'm good at knowing how to move energy, and I'm good at knowing how to identify it, but I'm not omnipotent or all-knowing in any way. So the humility, I'm not saying that you weren't bringing humility to it, but the acknowledgement that it's not you, right? Which externalizes the entire process and keeps it away from you. And then also the shape of your tools. When you're working with a sphere in a crystal healing environment, you have to be more cautious, because a sphere is not only sending energies in all directions, but it's retrieving energy from all directions. Does that make sense? So that can really complicate matters. So those are just kind of some of the things that come to mind when I'm like, well, why would we be taking on energy? And what I found too, one of the tips I always teach my students, so if you're new to me, this might be new to you too. Every night before I go to bed, this is like, I take a salt bath every day and I smudge with white sage every day religiously, right? The other thing I do super religiously is and my kids would tell you this too, because sometimes they do it with me, I send everybody's energy back to them from the day. With love. I will be sending your energy back to you today. So everybody in class, Alexis, everybody at Sage Goddess, everybody I've talked to, my friends I chatted on the phone with today and texted and all of that, everybody's energy goes back to them with love in the same form that they gave it to me. So if they were sending great energy, then they get a little turbo boost at the end of the night, like, ooh, and it helps them too, like, oh, good, my energy's back. And then I call my energy back from every place I've left it. So I send everybody's back and I call everything back to myself. And if you keep everybody's energy around you, that can start to show up as kind of padding, physical padding. Let's see.
I just heard back from Rosalind, and the cosmic stone material was mined in Bahia.
Oh, it's in Bahia.
Mm-hmm.
What did you with my thingy?
I put it down because
To show you Bahia.
Here's the map, and then we have some pictures of Bahia too.
Will you show it on the? Yeah. Bahia is just right above Minas Gerais, so it's very, very close.
Okay, so Bahia is right here. And that's where we get the Bahia amethyst. And this is the only place that rutilated quartz comes from in Brazil as well, from what I read. And then the pictures of Bahia are really, really beautiful too. So there's the water. And then look how bright and colorful this area is. It's really pretty.
The rutilated quartz that comes from Bahia forms those... the stars with the hematite. Have you seen that, where it's like the little black and then it's got the spray of gold all around it? Charlotta's kind of from Bahia. She's very colorful. Look at her. She looks like she could be beating a little rainbow drum. Don't look at me like that, Charlotta.
Charlotta just doesn't want to
Let's see. Yeah. So being grounded, being focused. I mean, here's the thing. Do your best, right? You don't have to do every single technique that I've taught you tonight, but intention really matters. Working in a sacred circle really matters. I tell you that because I've had some bad experiences where I didn't do energy work in a circle. And some weird shit happened. Shit you wouldn't want to have happen, okay? So that's why if you ever look at me, and I have students sometimes who say, you're like an overprotective mom. You're so like... about the opening the circle and everything, and my response is always like, maybe I am overprotective, but I don't want people to have a negative experience, and I've had some challenging experiences when I haven't followed protocol, because energy work is real. And distance healing for me, because I do a lot of distance healing, is very similar, because again, energy is not time location bound. We think it is because we're in 3D, so we think, oh, if that client's not on my table, then they're not benefiting. But again, if we really believe the ways that energy works, and that there's timelines, and that time is mutable, right? Time only exists to the extent that we obey it. Then we have to believe that distance healing is very effective. But that's why having people's permission, you know what I mean? Like sometimes I'll see people posting on Facebook and they'll say, oh, my sciatica, this and that. And I'll see people commenting and saying, oh, I'll send you energy. And I'm always like, that's scratchy for me. You shouldn't just send people energy without their permission. And I've had people say, well, they posted that they were in pain. Doesn't that mean they want healing? And it's like, not in my experience. In my experience, people need to ask before receiving. It's always good to ask permission. Unless you've invoked what I call PAM protection, which PAM protection is a request to your spirit guides to consciously and continuously monitor your energy field for intrusions. It's something that I have invoked in the past, especially when I've been doing really intense work or when I've been doing work outside the United States, or just when the field feels uncontrolled. If I'm working with a lot of other shaman and I don't know what their intentions are, I will invoke PAM protection, which basically just tells my spirit guides, wrap around me, let nothing in. And it's very powerful. The downside of PAM protection is they wrap around you and they let nothing in. So you end up being like, oh, I feel kind of alone, because it's like nothing can get in. And so I often release it. If I invoke it for a certain reason, because I'm around a bunch of healers, or if I'm at a festival, you know what I mean, and people are just taking a lot of different things, and I don't know, I can feel when the field is too much for me. So I will invoke PAM protection, but then I really try to consciously remember to release it when I'm done. Let's see. Is it possible to help pain caused by skeletal injuries? I think so. I mean, I tread carefully. I'll tell you this. This is the other way I'm kind of conservative, and it's only to make sure you have a good experience. I'm conservative when it comes to skeletal issues, when it comes to like the big C and very serious diseases, telling people, oh, just crystal healing. My mantra is not just crystal healing. My mantra is get your bones set, you know what I mean? And work with crystal healing for pain and reduction of inflammation and to avoid blockages, right? In my experience, crystal healing does not mend a broken bone. I do have friends who say that crystals cure things like the big C. I tread really lightly there. As someone with a very serious degenerative and incurable disease myself, I am not someone who would only work with crystals and not go to a neurologist. And so again, that may sound super conservative of me, or maybe it sounds practical and pragmatic of me. But I think that somewhere in the middle is always the right answer. I will say, I don't ever take one doctor's recommendation and go with it. I always get at least 2 recommendations, especially if it's serious. So I'm a big believer in gathering information from smart people and then navigating my way through it and balancing what I do with Western allopathic medicine and what I do with Eastern homeopathic and non-traditional sources and remedies for healing. So I hope that makes sense. I try to do both. I have gone to doctors for things and had them advise things for me and my family that I've absolutely declined because everything in my intuition said no. And it's always turned out to be the right answer. But then I've ended up following another doctor and having the right answer come. So I also just kind of call in the best possible minds when I'm facing something that is kind of beyond my pay level, How can we move, this is Michelle, transmute, help remove chronic illness versus just something in transit? Same process. The difference for me, Michelle, see if this resonates with you, because you've been a healer for a long time. For me, chronic illness, which I have 3 long-term, autoimmune diseases myself, and then others that I'm supposed to have by virtue of being in my family line, right? Which fortunately I've dodged as far as I can tell, is that instead of just a one and done, it tends to be work that I have to do over an extended period of time. I still do all of my energy work techniques for MS, even though I've had it for 12 years. So I don't get to a point where I'm comfortable and I just go, well, I'm probably good. I don't have to keep doing it anymore. I still do every single protocol now that I did 12 years ago when I was first diagnosed. So I don't take progress for granted. I continue to do the same exercises and the same techniques. When are Vogels and double terms not interchangeable? It's a great question, Lena. So here's my thought on that. Vogels just give you a party bonus, right? Because they have the feminine side, the wider side, and the masculine side, or the more narrow side. So I think of them as being interchangeable, except to the extent that with a Vogel, you are very clear about which side you are gathering energy and which side you're releasing. With this tool, because the two sides look virtually identical, I don't know that I would be able to tell you with 100% certainty, oh, I always extract with this side and I always release with that side. With a Vogel, I can tell you with assurance, I always extract with this side and I always release with that side. And it gives you, the other benefit of a Vogel is because the feminine side is wider, it gives you a broader surface area for extraction, and that's why different sizes of Vogels matter. You know, I've got the big mother load Vogel at home where the feminine side is like this. Like, that's going to suck up almost your entire butt, right? You know, well, I'm just saying, like, that lady's going in for the kill, right? I mean, she's taking your whole rear end with her. She's not just getting your little hip over here. She's got the whole booty. And then that even the masculine side, you know, is still a good, 2 or 3 inches around. So you have a wider surface area for extraction and for release. You can cover the body faster. Somebody's gonna have a screenshot of that, like, got your little butt. Let's see. This is Gretchen. How does it differ to work with a Vogel? Oh, okay, so yeah, it's kind of the same question. Jessica said, what do you think energetically gets stuck in the jaw with TMJ? Yeah, isn't TMJ interesting? I've had so many friends and clients over the years with TMJ, and I think it's somewhere between the third eye and the throat chakra. And I will say, at least in my experience, most people with jaw issues are people who are, at least in one part of their life, not fully living their full authentic truth. And when they get to that place where they're totally out of whatever closet they've been living in, and it can be as small as, like, I don't know, they've always wanted to be a teacher and nobody knew that, so they just never shared that. Or as soon as they get to that place of full authenticity, somehow the jaw issues, the jaw softens and relaxes. But if you think about where the jaw is, it's right between the third eye and the throat. So it's like seeing your pathway to full authentic expression. But that's just based on my experience, and what do I know, right? That's not anything research-based for me. Kim says she has constant pain in her feet from work. What's the best way to move the energy? If you don't have a bathtub, at least get one of those. You can get them on Amazon. What's it, Prime Day right now?
It is.
I have blocked myself from Amazon. I'm not going on there anymore because they're giving me recommendations. Like, have you thought about this? And I'm like, shit.
I went on like a little shopping spree yesterday that was super unnecessary.
Me too.
It was good for my happiness.
I got an eyeshadow and a weird thing to twist my hair up to make it curly without curlers.
Oh, is that one of those like little
like the twisty thing
ones? I've been seeing those on TikTok.
So that mine might look like yours a little bit, like have kind of a, I don't know. Anyway, I don't need that shit, right? So no more. I'm not. Have you seen this new Oracle deck? No, Amazon. I haven't, and I'd rather not. We're on a freeze. So anyway, I'm partially kidding and partially not kidding.
It's a problem. Send us help.
But the reason I'm mentioning this to you, Kim, there's a method to my madness. They have little foot baths on Amazon. One of my favorite things I bought on Amazon is a warmer for towels. And I put my massage tools in there before I use them. So if I'm like doing massage, mostly I do it for my family now, right? Or I'll put like at the end of a really long day, I'll take a washcloth and kind of get it moist. Put essential oils on there like lavender and sometimes some frankincense. It's yummy. And then put it in there, warm it up, and then just put it over my face. Like a little at-home facial. That's one of my favorite things. So get yourself like a little towel warmer or get yourself a little foot bath. And put your salt in there. Keep your bath salts close by. Make sure you're using Epsom salt at a minimum because that's got magnesium in it, so that's going to soften and relax the muscles. Give yourself a foot massage. A single terminated wand for your feet is heavenly. Here's your footer, here's the wand, and just get into the middle of your foot and give yourself a nice massage. Put your essential oils on the bottom and give yourself a good foot massage after your salt bath. And that will help you sleep. The other thing you can do too is put your essential oils on your feet and then put socks on your feet before you go to bed. I have a friend who puts, she has little bloodstone palm stones, and she puts her bloodstone palm stone against her foot and she puts a tight sock on and sleeps with that because she's standing on her feet all day, and she said it helps. So a couple of bloodstone palm stones can help too. Thanks, Janine. She said her question is, what does transmuting energy look like? Can you show those physical steps and what tool you would use? Transmutation is why are you laughing?
I'm so sorry. I just see Vanya's comment. She said, damn, man, Amazon, my cart is full. Some things I never heard of, like candle warmer. What the fuck is candle warmer? But I want it.
Don't do it. Like, seriously. Close the computer. I think of us as tempting sometimes. We got nothing on Amazon, man. And I swear to you, nothing they're recommending to me right now is anything I need. But they're sneaky. It's stuff I've been talking about. Like, oh, I should probably get a juicer for my lemons in the morning. Oh, have you seen this lemon juicer? And I'm like, it's only $9.99. It'll be here by 5 p.m. That's some bullshit. If we could get stuff to you by 5 p.m., I don't even know. We can't, so we're safe. Anyway, transmutation. So transmutation is an interesting process, and everybody's got different techniques for doing it. There's certain stones and crystals that I would consider really powerful transmuters of energy, like smoky quartz, right? Smoky quartz is the absolute king of transmutation. And that's the legend behind it, that it used to be clear and it's brown because it sucked up all the poopy energy out of your field and it's holding it, right? Obsidian is great for transmutation because really, if you think about what transmutation is, and this is why barite, and I was sharing that information about shape-shifting, and because shape-shifting is its own form of transformation, right? Transmutation is the process of changing energy from one form to another. So changing a higher vibration to a lower vibration to a higher vibration consciously. Right, that's what transmutation represents. So for me, it can be done through visualization. It can be done through intention. You can do transmutation via crystals. Some people love to have a smoky quartz vogel or an obsidian. My favorite vogel is obsidian. I had a really great smoky quartz one, but somebody stole it out of our classroom during an event, and I've never replaced it because I was sad about it. But now I have an obsidian one from our website, so that's my little go-to. So it's the stone type, it's the intention, and it's the process too, of just shifting vibrations from one state to another. The principle behind transmutation, and you may already know this, Janine, but other people may not. Janine's been around a minute and a half, long minutes, is polarity, right? So in Hermeticism, which is some of the oldest wisdom on the planet, most people think it's Atlantean. I think it is. And then, of course, everything that is Atlantean came to Mesopotamia, Egypt, and then filtered down to Greece and Rome and Tibet and all of the major civilizations that the Aztecs and the Maya. So, but anyway, all of that wisdom traces itself back to Atlantis. And the principle of polarity from Hermeticism says that every single energy in the entire universe, joy and grief and sorrow and rage and everything, has a pole opposite. So in energy work, what we know about energy work is it's instantaneous. It's not like you have to sit and wait and time it. If you set the intention that you're experiencing deep sorrow and grief, but you're going to transmute it to joy and gratitude, that's an instantaneous process, and it's intention based. But then, of course, there's crystals that can support that transmutation process too. So it depends on how you want to work with it. But barite's another good one, which is why I mentioned it, and that's why we were so stoked to have barite in the Cosmic Stone, because it's got all the cosmic filtration energies of shungite because of its high carbon content, and then it has the shape-shifting transmutation benefits and the meditation benefits of barite, and then in quartz, which magnifies and binds and programs all those energies together. Freya asks, what do you do when you go into a trance when you don't mean to? like me half the time. I feel like half the time I'm like, woo, definitely still on Earth, right? Going into a trance for me is about being in an altered state of consciousness. And we talk about that a lot and we throw that term around, but let's talk about what that actually means. I'm right now in beta state. I'm teaching, I'm talking to you. You're probably in beta state because you're listening, unless I'm really relaxing you and you might be dropping into alpha. And some people do. Some people say during class they lose track of time or they aren't really listening to what I'm saying because they're in a kind of a liminal space. And then you can go to theta, which is really, really deep meditation, and then you can go into delta, which is like, boom, you're out, right? So we constantly throughout the day, when you're daydreaming, you're shifting from beta to alpha. You are going into a slight, and like, you gotta be careful, like you're not on the freeway doing that, or, you know what I mean? Like, or you'll be in class and there's a math test tomorrow, but somehow you're kind of thinking about your weekend plans and you realize you dropped into alpha and you have to come back to beta. So really what that's about is becoming conscious of what state of awareness or state of consciousness you're experiencing in any given moment, and then controlling that process. Is sort of a short answer to a really powerful question, because the goal, if you think about it, where does creativity happen? I'm not super creative in beta. I'm super creative in alpha and theta. Do you know what my most creative time is every day? Right before I fall asleep and right when I wake up. Because before you fall asleep, you're in alpha, and then right as you're waking up, you know how you aren't really ready to make the coffee yet, but you're having some cool ideas, that's also alpha. So I take my time. I consciously get into bed always at least half an hour before I want to go to sleep, because I juice that time. I love that. I find it romantic. I find it relaxing. Like, I love that kind of like, I don't have to be focused. Like, I'm just kind of between states. And I love that with kids and school and stuff now that we're back in. But like summertime, I love that half an hour when I'm just waking up. Now everybody's out the door by 7 in the morning, so I don't really have that. But at nighttime, I love it. Oh, good. Thank you for that, Emily. I'm glad it's helpful for you. Natividad says, would you recommend to carry a double terminated quartz? Yes, unless sometimes, like if this is with you all the time, here's the pros and cons. You ready? The cons of carrying something like this all around all the time is that it might be too much energy for you. And so if you find yourself feeling kind of agitated or stressed out or amped up, and if you have anxiety disorder, which I have it in a mild way, but it's really rampant in my family. There's a lot of anxiety disorder in my family. So if you tend to be an anxious person, I don't think having quartz with you all the time is great. Having said that, and I'm picking mine up on Friday. My magician pendant is finally fixed. Thank God. I had to have the bail fixed. It fell off when I was in Denver. And I'd been wearing it for like 6 or 7 years. So it's finally fixed, and I can't wait to have it back on, because I've been running around with no quartz. And my vibe hasn't been the same, so now the pros of carrying double term quartz with you all the time is the more you're with, so once you have a piece of quartz that you're kind of dedicating to your healing process, whether it's this or a magician pendant or a ring that you love or whatever it is, once you have a piece of quartz, and remember, I'm saying quartz only about this because of its high programmability. Other minerals are not as programmable as quartz. Even diamond's very powerful as a healer, but it's not programmable. Not the same way. So the longer you have your quartz and the more you keep it with you, the more it's going to naturally attune and align to your oscillatory rates. So it learns you. And that's why I have one friend who says you should never give away a piece of quartz that's been in your personal collection. He's like, you can give away anything you want, but he's like, never your quartz. If your quartz, because his theory is your quartz chooses you, you don't choose it. And it becomes so attuned to your oscillatory rates that it's almost like until someone deprograms and reprograms it, they can't work with it themselves. So he's like, it's a false gift, because you think you're giving this, it's almost like giving your dog away. Do you have dogs? like, you can't really give your dog away, right? It's going to keep looking for its owner and trying to get home. You know what I mean? Like, dogs, I don't know, at least in my experience. There's a dog in my neighborhood. Simba got out again, and I had to help him get home again. Remember that dog I rescued?
Again?
Yeah, he was running up the street and almost got hit again. So there's this dog in my neighborhood. I've rescued him twice now. The kids were like, that can't be Simba. And I'm like, for fuck's sake, it sure is Simba out there trying to get hit by a car. I don't think he likes his owner. I probably shouldn't say that. But, I mean, when dogs keep running away, he's a really smart dog, too. But I keep thinking, like, I couldn't just bring Simba into my house and now, poof, Simba's mine. Like, you know, dogs are like that. They want to go back home. So I think of Quartz being the same way. Like, don't give your Quartz away. It wants to be with you. That was a really long answer to your question, but hopefully it was interesting. Let's see. Can Quartz help with mediumship? Oh, Kathy Aceman. What if you were born with pain? I still think it can be shifted. I think if you're born with pain, that now we're talking a karmic lineage ancestral thing, right? Don't you think? Whatever we come kind of preloaded with, that's our dharma. So, but I don't think it means you have to live with it. And I also think, I believe in the 7-generation rule of shamanism, that anything we do for healing in our lives reverberates 7 generations behind us and then 7 generations of our future ancestors, which is a lot of people. That's a lot of energy and it's a lot of time. And then we're talking about almost 2,000 years, right? So if you believe in the 7-generation rule, if you came preloaded with something, doesn't that mean that maybe you're the one who can transmute it? And that's not to say that that's your dharma or your work, but then who's to say that the pain is your dharma, right?
I mean, Emily, if your intuition is telling you to give it away, always trust your intuition.
Yeah.
But don't force it.
Don't force it. Like, if somebody's at your house and they're like, I really like that, can I have it? And there's part of you that's like, no.
Yeah, it's also about, like, what pieces you really work with personally.
That's true.
Too. Like,
That's true.
I definitely have pieces in my collection that I bought because I loved them and I, like, wanted them. But, like, I don't necessarily work with them on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
You know, but she was saying that she's seen you give away quartz before.
Yeah, not something that, but, like, I wouldn't give my magician piece away. You know what I mean? I don't, you know, and if I give something away from my personal collection, it's because the piece is like, I want to go be with this person.
Yeah, your intuition tells you.
But 9 times out of 10, like, the working crystals in my collection, even the not fancy ones that you would, like, not shake a stick at, those aren't going anywhere. Those are things that I, you know, will keep with me until I'm done, and then I'll hopefully pass them down. And hopefully pass them down with the energy intact. You know what I mean? So that my granddaughter or grandson one day will be able to, you know, work with that same vibration and frequency. But yeah.
Tanya said Simba probably talked to Bodhi and knows what a great life he had.
So I will say Simba got into my backyard and I was feeding him and stuff, and he was just like, he laid down, he was like, this is real good. And then his owner came to pick him up and he was like, he looked at me like, oh fuck.
No.
That's really bad.
Oh, poor Simba.
He's sad, he didn't look happy. But he's such a goofball. He's probably like, the more the merrier, dude, come on over, or whatever.
Alexis Bailey asked, she said that she does have chronic anxiety and, well, I'm not sure if she said chronic, but she said she has anxiety.
Yeah.
And she asked what the best stone to carry is, and I'd say lepidolite and garnet.
Love garnet, love lepidolite for anxiety.
No.
I really, really do. And what I would say is anxiety is different for different people. Some people's anxiety comes from a place of being really deeply ungrounded, right? Some people's anxiety comes from overactivation of their psychic gifts. So they're seeing past, present, future all the time, and it makes them kind of like, I'll share this. For me, my anxiety is from too high of a vibration and needing to slow the roll and ground it because there's so many people in my field. So I always default to the garnets, in rare cases hematite. I usually don't need hematite, that's too heavy for me, but I do love working with garnet, and I have to be careful working with things like barite, because it can agitate my anxiety. It can exacerbate it. But for people whose anxiety comes from being too grounded, barite's like a miracle stone. You know, barite and selenite and scolecite and dambarite, and scolecite's a really powerful one, and apophyllite. You know, if your anxiety is linked also to depression, some of those soul star chakra stones, and in particular scolecite and apophyllite, can be really helpful allies for that too. Let's see. Yes, Nick did pass his driving test. Thank you for asking. It's an exciting time over here for sure. Am I going to have more magician quartz? We are. Come holidays, we're doing aura. Have you seen it?
I saw the picture.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. We're finally doing aura. They're not here yet. This is like Christmas time. But we're doing aura magician pendants. That's going to be really pretty. Let's see. Yeah, no, it's really, and the way illness and disease work in families is fascinating to me. You know, and I'm fascinated by the whole field of epigenetics and sort of how we land where we are, and then also cases like mine that are super anomalous. Like nobody else in my family ever had Graves' disease, Crohn's disease, or MS. Like I'm the only one. So it's like, and every time I was diagnosed with one of these things, my mom and dad would go, "What? Like, where did that come from?" But then I don't have some of the mainstay struggles. I don't have the, you know, cardiac issues and stuff that a lot of my family members have. So it's fascinating to me, like what kind of gets passed down the line and what the recurring patterns are of disease and illness that we see in families. Like I'm fascinated by that.
Lepidolite does grow with quartz, but it does not always have quartz in it. And they're asking if they can keep the double terminated wand next to their bed, even if it has quartz in it.
Yeah, if you program it. So let's talk about programming real quick, because I did see a question also about deprogramming. And we have covered this before. I think I covered it in the YouTube class too. So if you want more information, like if this isn't wetting your whistle and you're like, I want to know more about that, and then I hate to keep saying wait for the book, but it is in the book unless the editor takes it out. That's part of like the 300 pages she has to remove. But anyway, so quartz, as I mentioned at the beginning of this class, one of the reasons I love quartz so much is its radical programmability. And the reason it's so programmable is quartz is really like an energetic sponge. It's constantly absorbing and receiving everything around it. That's why I told you it learns you. It doesn't learn you just by being across the room from you or sitting in a drawer, but if you're working with it or wearing it on a regular basis, it is learning your oscillatory rates, it's learning your routine, it's learning where illness and disease are landing, how energy is being processed or not processed in your body. It's observing you. It sounds creepy, but that's been my experience. So quartz is not good in the bedroom unless you program it, and in which case you can actually program it to help you sleep. Quartz also, in its forms of amethyst, for example, and rose quartz, has a slower DOR than clear quartz. The clearer and more non-colored the quartz is, the higher the dominant oscillatory rate. So what you don't want to do, I have a super juicy clear quartz generator that she and I and Dave picked out in Denver. And I brought it home. It's super beautiful. I can't have that thing anywhere near my bedroom. Like I literally keep it in the kitchen near the coffee maker. So I'm just like, it might as well put creamer in that thing and be drinking it, right? It's like a. But in the morning in the kitchen or when I'm cooking dinner and stuff, like I want to be thinking clearly and focused and in total beta state and all of that energy. So to program and deprogram a quartz is the same process. It's intention based. I like to program quartz at the full moon and deprogram at the new moon. So I do kind of go by lunar phases. And the reason is at the full moon, when you program your quartz, what you're channeling through your own energy field is that incredible illumination, right? Full moon energy is no joke. And it actually shifts the frequency of your entire energy field. So you are a different person at the full moon than you are at the new moon. I prefer the new moon because my energy is always up here and everybody around me, it's just too much sometimes. And I feel like at the full moon, it literally is like this. Whereas at the new moon, the energy is already kind of depressed or relaxed. And I find that much more comfortable. It slows everybody's cosmic roll a little bit. So, but you may feel the opposite. it may be so damn slow around you that you love the full moon for the juice, and then you know what I mean? So just, there's no right or wrong answer. So at the full moon, you want to always take your crystal in your left hand, cover it in your right hand, right? Because your left hand is receiving, your right hand is projecting. Your right hand is connected to the left side of your brain, and that's the masculine. And then all you have to do is imagine the intention that you're setting. And I'm a visual person, so I always imagine it literally coming from my third eye down through my arm and through my hand and fingers into the crystal. And just set the intention for how you want this crystal to operate in your environment or in your energy field or in your collection. And so again, if you always have quartz in your travel bag and you find yourself somewhere and you're like, I really wish I had black tourmaline and I don't, you can program your quartz that way. Just remember at the next new moon to deprogram it and return it to its original DOR, its original frequency. So I do have some quartz not in my bedroom, but around my bedroom. The only quartz I have in my bedroom is strawberry quartz, which has hematite in it, and sometimes lepidocrosite and sometimes lithium. So forms of quartz like strawberry quartz can actually be quite grounding. Same thing with like a harlequin quartz, which has, again, lepidocrosite and hematite. You've seen harlequin, right? With the little glimmery, like little shimmery bits and pieces, little black red. It's actually a very grounding form of quartz. Same thing with Tibetan quartz, has a highly grounding frequency, even though it comes from a super high vibrational, like that Tibetan ridge or the Himalayan ridge in Tibet and Nepal is one of the highest vibrational locations on the planet. But the quartz that comes from there is so carbon included that it has more of a grounding frequency. Let's see. As someone who struggled with weight, this is Lori, I'm interested to hear more about extra weight being extra energy and how to move that. Yeah, this is a fascinating topic, and I don't talk about it too much because it's not that I don't, some people don't, and they're right, just having extra weight is not a problem, unless it's a problem for you and it's affecting your health. So some people are like, no, I carry extra weight, but I like it and they're comfortable. And so I don't see it as a problem to be fixed unless, like I said, you don't like it and it's impacting your health. I have a set point weight for myself. It's just this number, and I'm there now, is my comfort zone. If I get 5 or 10 pounds above that, I feel uncomfortable. And if I get 5 or 10 pounds below where I am now, then my clothes don't fit. And then you have to go on Amazon Prime Day and buy yourself new shirts, which I'm not going to do. So I'm right where I like to be. But, during COVID, I had put on about 15 pounds because all I did was cook chicken Alfredo every single day. And I didn't feel comfortable. But it wasn't an energetic thing. It was because I was eating too much sugar and butter and fat. And I can't do that because I'm only 5 feet tall and it doesn't work. If you're carrying energetic weight, there's a couple of hallmark ways to know. The first way to know is no matter what you eat or don't eat, it doesn't come off. And now that can be linked to other things like thyroid issues, for example, can make weight really resistant to movement. But usually when it's energetic, it's like I have clients who'll say, Athena, I'm telling you, I don't eat. No matter what I do, I can't lose it. That tells you it's energetic. A lot of times, too, when people have been through really tough relationship challenges, they will put on weight as a way of literally physically creating distance between them and potential suitors. It's almost like a defensive or protective barrier. So one of the things to do is to figure out what kind of weight you're carrying. Is it like me during COVID where I just cooked every day and that didn't work out for me? Or is it because there's too much energy around you and you are literally creating a barrier around yourself for protection? And if it's that kind of weight, usually that doesn't respond really to dietary changes. That responds to shifting the energy and the frequency in your body, mind, and your spirit. And so there are certain crystals that you can work with. Sacral stones are really powerful for this. I always tell people who are trying to lose weight, look at your jewelry. Because 9 times out of 10, I look down at their hands and they've got amethyst and really beautiful sapphire, and they have lovely dambarite jewelry on and so much quartz, and there isn't a single garnet. There's no carnelian, there's no citrine, there's no onyx or petrified wood. Like all the things that would help to stabilize their central nervous system so it can release some of that fight or flight, that trauma energy, which helps to, there's physical effects of that, right? It raises cortisol levels in your system, which again can make your body extremely resistant to weight loss. So notice the crystals that are around you. And you can also dialogue with the energy around your body and give it, again, permission and a direction to leave. Once you release fear, you'll be amazed what happens to your body. Most of the dense energy in our field is attached to us because of fear. Fear that somebody's going to hurt us, fear that somebody's going to take something from us, fear that somebody's going to, I don't know, whatever we think is going to happen. Appetite's really good. If the issue is food, if the issue is Athena during COVID, and it's my third serving of chicken Alfredo, then we work with appetite. If it's actually a diet and metabolism issue, and then you got to start working on the ACV, which will burn stored fat and help you lose weight too. Oh yeah, I make really good biscuits from scratch. Let's see. Hillary said, first time flying since before the pandemic. What's the best way to travel with crystals in your carry-on bag? Honest to God, I mean, it's so funny. And now when we travel as a team, like Brooklyn got stopped this last time, but none of us did.
And I always get stopped. Well, yeah, she got stopped, but I forgot there was like a specific. Oh, it's because she had the quartz moons in her luggage.
Well, and I had my quartz phallus in my suitcase, so I'm like, oh man, if I get stopped, the whole team's gonna see them go, oh really? And like, I didn't get stopped, but she got stopped. And then when she got stopped, they went through her whole suitcase, and she had all the little plastic baby hands in there. So the guy was like, she's like, oh yeah, that's right, I got plastic baby hands. And she's like putting them on and doing the thing, like in the middle of Denver airport.
Which is already a weird place.
Oh yeah. So I don't get it stopped anymore. Where they like to stop me is when I've got 15 of Sylvia's, amulets on and I look like Mr. T but with crystals. That's when I get stopped. And then they'll say, can you take all of those off? And I'm like, here's the first one, here's the second one, here's the third one.
She said, is a magician pendant going to be a problem?
No, I've never been stopped for my magician pendant. Just haven't.
My personal preference at the airport is I don't wear any jewelry, and I just put it in a little zipper pouch in the front of my little backpack that I have in my bag, and then I just put it on once I get past security. That's what I do, just because I like to avoid the issue entirely.
Yeah.
But
I like that as a non-confrontational approach.
Right, I just don't want to deal with getting. I always get stopped for other reasons, and this is kind of weird.
She's moving closer.
It's really weird, but multiple times I've gotten stopped, and I go through the little thing, and then they stop me, and it beeps and everything, and then they have to pat me down and stuff, and they always say I alarm in the groin area. That's exactly how they say it. So David makes fun of me. You alarmed in the groin area, we just need to pat you down, and then they'll ask me do you have any piercings? Are you wearing? And I don't. So I don't know what it is.
Your groin is alarming.
I guess.
So I have so much fun with those people. And then one time we were going to the gem show, and anyway, things were vibrating in my suitcase. That was exciting. That's not a conversation you want to have.
They're saying same. It happens to you guys too. Maybe it's our sacral chakras or something. I don't know. It's weird. And then they're always like, we have to pat you down. Do you want to do it here in a private space?
I'm always like, no, right here, baby. We're going for it today.
I feel like going to the private space is more uncomfortable. You know what I mean? It almost feels safer in front of God and everyone.
I'm always like, you want this? We're doing it right here.
Don't take me to your room. You know what I mean? I don't want to go to your room. Just do it here.
Oh yeah, honey. Anyway. Yeah, Sherry's like, I'd take 10 pounds of crystals with me. The first time Dave and I went to Tucson, which was 10 years ago, believe it or not, we brought all the crystals back in 2 suitcases that we bought, which at the time seemed like so much, but I mean, God, that was 10 years ago. And so we're going through security, and Dave looks at the guy and he goes, I'm just going to tell you right now, this whole thing is full of crystals. If that's a problem, let's just stop right now and I'll unzip it, because literally there's nothing in here but crystals. And so the guy literally was like taking every single piece out of the suitcase. And then there were people behind us who were all annoyed, and Dave was like, gem show, you know what I mean? Like, what do you want me to do? I love it. Yeah, Charlie Colley is like, don't take me to your room with all the alien emojis.
Exactly. I saw somebody earlier asking for a sneak peek of next month's tools, so I think we should show that.
Let's show that to you. Let me just make sure there's nothing else in my notes. You know me and my notes. Nope, that was it. Yeah, and that was a powerhouse ending to a very interesting month. So, do we have a flashlight so I can show them?
There's one right there, but it doesn't really...
Yeah, at least a little bit. There should be a little bit through here. Do you have I don't have the sheet with all of the notes and everything on it.
Oh, wait, hold on. I think I could.
Yeah. Because this is Brazil still. Oh, you have the rest of the tools over there.
Yeah, this is...
I want to show the Soul Shift tools too, because some of you are in Soul Shift. So if you want the tools for next month for Bali and Indonesia, you have to subscribe by Saturday at midnight. So if you're already subscribed, I'm showing you what you're going to get for next month. And if you're like, oh, I didn't know there were tools, now I know, you have to go into the website and you have to sign up. And then if you want to stop getting your tools, you have to cancel by midnight on Saturday. So you don't have to have them every month, but it's up to you. So I do want to show you your, this is Agni Monatite.
It's so cool.
We had these hand carved. This is your tool for November Crystal Masters. And then you're getting your Balinese offering incense, which I'll tell you about in just a second. And it's heavenly. And your Bali stickers. So these are your tools for next month.
The offering incense has lemongrass, hibiscus, sandalwood, white sage, and plumeria.
Yeah. And it's real plumeria flowers in there, which is really cool. If you've ever been to Bali or Indonesia, or even to Hawaii and some tropical continental locations, and you're familiar with plumeria, it's some of my favorite flower magic. And Agni Monatite comes from Indonesia. I'll teach you all about it next month. It's known as a pseudo-tektite because it wasn't the result of a meteoric collision. So it's got a really interesting origin story. So pseudo-tektite and tektite are two terms that you're going to know very well, because we'll talk about the difference between Agni Monatite and Columbianite, Libyan gold, etc. next month. But it is still millions of years old and formed through an immersion in water, and it came from fire. So it has the same sort of like really powerful alchemical properties as a lot of the other tektites do. And what's interesting about it too, Agni Monatite is the one form of tektite that was considered to be the Chintamani stone in Buddhism, which is known as the wishing stone. It's the equivalent in Buddhism of the philosopher's stone in alchemy, right? Which is like the most prized material on earth. And there are a lot of people who really believe this is the Chintamani, like the most powerful stone you can use for wish making and manifestation. So there's more to talk about with that. The tools for Soul Shift are really, really cool. We're going to be, you're getting a rain stick. And I'll teach you how to play this in a continuous way. It's a little hard when I'm working with both hands, but if you kind of wave it, you can keep the sound moving continuously, and I'll teach you how to do that. And then we're going to decorate them. So you're getting all the stones and the thread and everything to do that. You're getting this, which is so cool. It's a kyanite flame. We have these made for the set. And then you're getting your perfume ingredients, and you are getting your incense, Balinese incense, and your Balinese tea lights. And that is all for Soul Shift for next month. Water, 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 energy everywhere. Because it's Bali and it's Indonesia, and Agni Monatite came from the water, and there's all kinds of connections. So
I may have had an influence on this set.
Yeah, can you tell that the Pisces over here, the double water over here, had some influence?
I think we need to do rain stick.
I know, and it's gonna be fun to craft them together with you. And those were all made and hand painted. Every single dot on there was painted by hand for these tools for our kit.
Oh, it's so
which I think is
special.
really special. So anyway, Saturday midnight, that's the deadline to sign up. I know, isn't it beautiful? What's my bra called? Nikki Bicky. Oh, go get this on Amazon Prime.
That's a good choice.
There's actually a lace one that I like even better. And if you want, I can post the link to that. Because I'm well endowed. I can't wear, those little bralettes that very tiny people with smaller chests wear, and you're like, my girls wouldn't fit in that. So I can give you links to cute bralettes that are not underwire that will fit you if you're stacked. You're welcome, you guys. So I want to thank you for being here. Thank you, of course, to Karen and to Alexis for all their work behind the scenes. If you missed the wand this month and you wanted it, we do have some of them. And we will give you the links to that. I think if you go right to sagegoddess.com and just scroll down, I think it's in today's new. And
this is in the vault, so it's not in today's new listed, but it is in your online classroom. I put the links to everything Athena talked about right in your Crystal Masters online classroom.
Will you just pop the vault link into the feed too? Yeah, some people just don't go there or forget to go there, and so she'll put the link right in there too. And the code is magic with a C. For 23% off. It's not magic with a K. Now that I understand the question. Just took me a minute. We have the blue barite for you. We have, and then if you're like, I want to work with this stone, but I don't want to pay that, or I don't need a wand. We do have the little spheres and the tumbles for you. Of the same stone from the same mine in Brazil, in Bahia. And so any of those, if you would like to work with the stone and have it for your collection, we don't have an endless supply. There was one little pocket of this, and they carved what they could. So if you want it for your crystal healing tray, this is a good time to go and grab it. And like I said, if you haven't worked with barite before and you don't have any shungite or carbon, this is like a twofer because you're getting both of those in the quartz matrix, and that's a cool, that's a party trick, you know. Yeah, go get a bra. Sometimes the vault link doesn't work, really? Thank you for letting us know.
Yeah, we'll look into that.
But yeah, I'll check on it for you.
You have to be logged into your account. So if you do it from a different web browser, or maybe I think sometimes if you do it from YouTube and on your phone, it'll take you in a different web browser and you won't be logged in, you won't be able to access it. That's why I say it's in your online classroom. The link is in your online classroom.
I'm embarrassed to tell you that there have been times where I couldn't find stuff on the website because I wasn't logged in.
It's happened to me before too. It really has.
And I've asked the team like, "Hey, where is this?" And they're like, "Are you logged in?" And I feel like just, you know, even I sometimes am not logged in. All right, you guys. Well, cheers. Thank you for being here. We're so glad you enjoyed class. And tomorrow, if you're in Soul Shift, is Elder Council. October Elder Council is always a whole mood, right? Because the veil is thin, the ancestors are close by. And then next week in Soul Shift, we have our shamanic journey. So it's a lot of journey work this week, a lot of chances to actually practice. If you have your wand, it's a great tool to bring into shamanic journey. It'll help deepen your meditation experience and help you channel your messages more effectively. So yeah, cheers. Thank you so much for being here, everybody. We really, really appreciate you. And I'll see you tomorrow in Elder Council.